Chapter 2434. After realizing how powerful Cloud Palace and Immortal Palace were, Xiao Chun had a grand ambition. One day, Xiao Chun would also become an existence like Cloud Palace's master. After realizing how powerful Cloud Palace and Immortal Palace were, Xiao Chun also had a grand ambition. One day, Xiao Chun would also become an existence like Cloud Palace's master. However, these were all things for the future. Right now, Xiao Chun was still quite a distance away from the monk and Taoist, let alone Cloud Palace's master. Putting everything else aside, Xiao Chun didn't even have the qualifications to interfere in the battle between the monk, Taoist, and Immortal Palace's master. If Xiao Chun wanted to be on equal footing with Cloud Palace's master, he still had a long way to go. Xiao Chun calmly watched the battle. Just as the monk said, the moment Immortal Palace's expert appeared, Xiao Chun could no longer resolve the situation. The battle had already reached its climax. In the midst of the battle, an expert from Immortal Palace sneered at the monk. "Monk, I've long heard that your Cloud Palace's 9 palaces have 9 great palace masters. As one of the 9 great palace masters, your strength is a bit lacking." Haha, this poor monk's strength is insignificant to begin with. But even so, you still can't do anything to this poor monk, can you? The monk didn't seem to mind the mockery of the expert from Immortal Palace. He put on a mocking expression. Cloud Palace was divided into 9 palaces above the clouds, and each palace had a palace master. It was said that the palace masters of the 9 palaces above the clouds were all Ancestor Realm experts. They were the 9 great pillars of the 9 palaces above the Cloud Palace's master. This little bit of provocation was naturally useless against the monk. After living for so many years, if he didn't even have this bit of shrewdness, then he might as well just bang his head against the wall and die. As soon as he finished speaking, the monk struck out with a palm. The Buddha's projection was like a giant that pressed down with a palm. Umapa. The chanting of sutras filled the air. The expert from Immortal Palace didn't dare to be careless in the slightest in this battle with the monk. He could clearly sense a terrifying pressure pressing down on him from the palm. This monk had indeed cultivated the Buddhist techniques to the acme of perfection. This palm strike of his was filled with boundless Buddhist powers. Looking at the monk's palm strike, Xiao Chun did not know how to evaluate it. It was not that there were no Buddhist experts in the Great Thousand World, and Xiao Chun had come into contact with many cultivators who practiced Buddhist cultivation methods. However, compared to the monk, the powerhouses in the Great Thousand World who practiced Buddhist cultivation techniques were simply too weak. They could not be compared at all. Buddhist skills were benevolent and merciful, delivering all living beings from torment and righteousness. All of these were fully manifested on Tyrant's body. At this moment, Tyrant was truly like a living Buddha. His golden radiance was so blinding that it was hard to look at him directly. When a monk struck out with his palm, the expert from Immortal Palace was not to be outdone. Dense black light erupted from behind him. Then he struck out with a fist. Dense ghost energy frantically spread out. The black fist and the golden palm collided fiercely. It was like the collision of light and darkness. For a moment, neither side could do anything to the other. It was a confrontation between light and evil. At the same time, the expert from Immortal Palace shouted angrily, "Monk, let me experience your Mahavajrayana Sutra today." Although the experts from a sword sect had not been in the primordial world for a long time, it was not a short time either. Therefore, the expert from Immortal Palace had some understanding of Tyrant. He knew that Tyrant cultivated the Mahavajrayana Sutra, one of the top Buddhist techniques in the Great Thousand World. When Tyrant first appeared in the primordial world, all the Buddhist sects in the primordial world were shaken. Even the most powerful Buddhist sect, the Heavenly Thunder Temple, personally invited Tyrant to the Heavenly Thunder Temple. He had wanted to fight Tyrant for a long time. Today was the best opportunity. As he spoke, the black light behind the expert from Immortal Palace erupted again. His aura also continuously rose. Tyrant was not to be outdone. The sound of Buddhist scriptures in the world increased again. At the same time, the Buddhist shadow behind him also became more and more powerful. Who would have thought that a fat monk who didn't seem to have any outstanding features would have such strength? Seeing Tyrant and the expert from a mortal palace collide, Li Ku and the others did not dare to associate Tyrant with Wanshan City's flowery monk. One had to know that in Wanshan City, Tyrant was the one who hugged beauties. He looked like a monk who drank meat and drank wine. It was hard to imagine that such a monk could cultivate Buddhist techniques to such a level. However, Tyrant clearly did not know what Li Ku and the others were thinking. Even if he knew, with Tyrant's personality, he would probably say something like, "Wine and meat pass through the intestines, Buddha stays in the heart. If I don't enter hell, who will?" It was too terrifying. This kind of battle was unforgettable for everyone present. At this moment, the golden light around Tyrant seemed to have become a second sun between heaven and earth, illuminating all things. There was still no clear victor. Tyrant and the expert from a mortal palace were both progenitor realm experts. Their strength was on par with each other. It would not be easy to determine the victor. However, at this moment, without any warning, a cyan light appeared out of nowhere. The entire sky was directly split by this sword. It was as if the sky was split into two and completely split apart. The sky is splitting apart. Such a peerless sword strike made even a sword cultivator like Li Ku gasp in amazement. There was actually someone in this world who could slash out such a sword strike. The cyan light slowed down and fiercely struck between the golden palm and the black fist. Tyrant and Immortal Palace's experts, who were originally on par with each other, immediately stopped fighting when this sword strike appeared. Then, a young man wearing a long robe embroidered with white clouds appeared on the battlefield. The man was very ordinary, and there was nothing special about him. He only held an extremely ordinary sword in his hand, which also did not have anything special about it. However, with the appearance of the young man, Xiao Qian's eyes flashed with a strange glint. Xiao Qian did not deny that Tyrant was very strong. However, in any case, the path that Tyrant walked was different from Xiao Qian's. However, this young man was different. Like Xiao Qian, he was also a sword cultivator. Moreover, judging from the sword strike just now, Xiao Qian had to admit that this young man's strength was far above his own. Even his comprehension of a sword Dao was far above his. Putting aside the cultivation, this was the first time Xiao Qian met someone whose comprehension of the sword Dao was higher than his. At this moment, the young man stood there like a sharp Jian Yi that had yet to be unsheathed. His entire body was like a sword. Xiao Qian looked at the young man with a strange expression. At this time, Tyrant also said to the young man in a bad mood, "Qin Feng, are you crazy? You want to cut down your own people?" Clearly, Tyrant was very dissatisfied with Qin Feng's sudden attack. If he had not stopped in time, Qin Feng's sword strike would have landed on Tyrant and that expert from Immortal Palace. Begging collection, begging monthly votes, begging recommendation. Chapter 2435. Monk grumbled unhappily. Qin Feng didn't care about that at all. He was the same as Monk, one of the 9 palace masters of the 9 palaces above the clouds. He was also an ancestor expert. Moreover, Qin Feng was in charge of the sword palace within the 9 palaces above the clouds. Monk grumbled unhappily. Qin Feng didn't care about that at all. He was the same as Monk, one of the 9 palace masters of the 9 palaces above the clouds. He was also an ancestor expert. Moreover, Qin Feng was in charge of the sword palace within the 9 palaces above the clouds. Not caring about Monk's curses at all, Qin Feng directly locked his gaze onto the 2 Immortal Palace experts. With an extremely indifferent expression, he said, "Both of you, stop." "Humph, do we have to stop just because you say so?" Hearing that, one of them coldly snorted. It was true that Qin Feng's strength wasn't weak, and could even be said to be very strong. His sword Dao was simply omnipresent. However, so what? Qin Feng was also an ancestor expert like them. The 2 of them naturally wouldn't listen to Qin Feng. Facing the cold snort from the Immortal Palace expert, Qin Feng didn't care at all. He slightly shook his head and said, "This is the order of your Immortal Palace's palace master. It's up to you whether you want to listen or not." After speaking, he didn't want to pay attention to the 2 of them anymore. As for the two who originally wanted to berate Qin Feng, when they heard that it was an order from their palace master, they immediately stopped. They could look down on Qin Feng, but they didn't dare to disobey their palace master. They could only coldly snort to express the dissatisfaction in their hearts. Seeing that, Monk on the side laughed and schadenfreude. "Ha, you two cowards. Why are you scared? If you have the ability, then come and fight your Grandpa Buddha for another 300 rounds." Monk didn't hide his ridicule at all. Towards that, the two Immortal Palace experts were furious. However, they forcefully endured their anger and didn't attack again. Seeing that, Monk smiled even more brightly. However, just as Monk was rejoicing in their misfortune, Qin Feng continued, "Palace Master wants the two of you to return. He even said that you shouldn't disgrace yourself outside." Qin Feng's words caused Monk's smile to immediately stiffen. Then, he fiercely glared at Qin Feng. His appearance was clearly saying, "You brat, you really don't know how to speak." But since Qin Feng said so, Tyrant naturally couldn't attack anymore. It was just that the matter wasn't settled yet. Although he couldn't attack anymore, Tyrant still looked at the 7 old ancestors of Lin country and said, "Your country of Lin has provoked me time and time again. Shouldn't you give me an explanation?" Tyrant didn't care about Lin country's repeated provocations. However, he would definitely demand an explanation from the royal family of Lin country. Hearing Tyrant's words, the 7 old ancestors of Lin country were stunned. Then, their faces turned extremely ugly. They already knew that those two were Immortal Palace's experts. Immortal Palace was the overlord of the entire primordial world. Compared to Immortal Palace, Lingua couldn't even be counted as a strand of leg hair. Meanwhile, the monk and the others didn't even fear Immortal Palace, let alone their country of Lin, a power that even Immortal Palace attached great importance to. How could their country of Lin compare? By now, the 7 old masters finally understood what kind of trouble the emperor of the Lin country had caused for the Lin country. It was practically on the brink of destruction. In the eyes of experts at Tyrant's level, a small country of Lin was as weak as an ant. If they wanted to destroy it, it was just a matter of a word. Give an explanation? Hearing Tyrant's words, the 7 old ancestors didn't know what to do. What kind of explanation could the country of Lin give? Or rather, what did the country of Lin have that could catch their eyes? The 7 of them stood rooted to the ground nervously. For a moment, they didn't know what to do. Seeing this, Tyrant said snappily, "Forget it. Let the Emperor of Lin country take his own life. It's useless to keep such an idiot alive." It could be said that Tyrant was being magnanimous. He didn't vent his anger on the royal family of Lin country and only let the Emperor take his own life. This kind of punishment was already enough for the royal family of Lin country. Although, as the Emperor, taking his own life was indeed shameful, what else could he do? Even if the other party destroyed the entire country of Lin, he wouldn't have the slightest bit of temper, let alone letting the Emperor take his own life. Hearing Tyrant's words, the 7 old ancestors' hearts sank. However, they still cupped their hands respectfully and said, "Junior understands." After settling the matter of the country of Lin, Tyrant and Taoist once again came before Shao Chun. At this time, Tyrant also introduced him to Qin Feng enthusiastically. "Qin Feng, this is Brother Shao Chun. He's a pretty good person. Where did he come from?" "Brother Shao Chun, what world did you come from?" "The Great Thousand World." Right. Look at my memory. The Great Thousand World. I plan to bring them to see the Palace Master. I can also talk to that old thing from Immortal Palace to see if he can open the black hole and let them return first. Brother Shao Chun seems to have something to do in the Great Thousand World. Tyrant introduced everyone to each other. Of course, Tyrant also introduced Qin Feng to Shao Chun and the others. After hearing Tyrant's words, Qin Feng also looked at Shao Chun curiously. The Great Thousand World? Is it a small world? He had never heard of this place. But if it was just a small world, Qin Feng wasn't that interested. In this regard, before Shao Chun could reply, Tyrant spoke first. "Look at your uncultured face. How can it be a small world? Let me tell you, the small world that Brother Shao Chun and the others are in is a genuine universe. It's the same as our great world and the primordial world. A universe? Upon hearing this, Qin Feng's interest was immediately piqued. They were already invincible in the great world, which was why they followed their palace master to the primordial world. They were a group of people who couldn't stand loneliness. Now that they heard about a new universe, Qin Feng was naturally interested. He looked at Xiao Qian with a hint of anticipation and said, "Oh, I wonder if there is a world lord in the great thousand world now. Who is the strongest force? If you have time, you can talk to the palace master and head to the great thousand world to take a look." The Cloud Palace didn't have any intention of invading other universes because the higher-ups of the Cloud Palace were all people who couldn't stand loneliness. After staying in the great world for a long time, it was inevitable that they would feel bored. To put it bluntly, they came out to have fun. The only difference was that the people of the Cloud Palace traveled the great thousand world, while the people of the Cloud Palace traveled the great thousand world. To put it bluntly, the people of the Cloud Palace traveling the great thousand world were like ordinary people traveling to and from major cities. After all, the height one stood at was different, and the world one saw was different. The people of the Cloud Palace saw the great thousand world, while ordinary people only saw cities. Seeing that Qin Feng had developed a strong interest in the great thousand world, Xiao Qian didn't know what to say. After all, the great thousand world couldn't be compared to the primordial world and the great thousand world. However, before Xiao Qian could speak, Tyrant interrupted him. Okay, we'll talk about these things later. Let's go and see the palace master. Brother Xiao Qian, come with us. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2436. Previously, Tyrant had told Xiao Qian that if he wanted to return to the Great Thousand World, he would need the approval of the master of the world of Hongming. Otherwise, Xiao Qian and the others would not be able to return to the Great Thousand World through the spatial black hole. Previously, Tyrant had told Xiao Qian that if he wanted to return to the Great Thousand World, he would need the approval of the master of the world of Hongming. Otherwise, Xiao Qian and the others would not be able to return to the Great Thousand World through the spatial black hole. However, with Xiao Qian's strength, not to mention obtaining the approval of the master of the world of Hongming, he would not even be able to meet him. After all, Xiao Qian was only a half-step sovereign master. With such cultivation, he naturally would not be able to meet the master of the world. However, Tyrant could help Xiao Qian. Let the palace master of the Cloud Palace talk to him. Both sides were world masters. The master of the world of Hong, Meng, should not refuse such a small matter. Hearing Tyrant's words, Xiao Qian did not say much. Immediately, the group left to meet the palace master of the Cloud Palace. As for the country of Lin, Tyrant did not care at all. Although the emperor of the country of Lin had not committed suicide, Tyrant was not worried that the country of Lin would dare to play any tricks. After all, the 7 ancestors of the country of Lin knew what was more important. Either let the current emperor commit suicide, or the entire royal family of the country of Lin would be destroyed. Even an idiot would know what to choose between these two outcomes. Of course, Tyrant was not worried that the 7 ancestors of the royal family of Lin would deceive him because they could give it a try. He believed that the royal family of Lin country would not be so stupid. After Xiao Qian and his group left, the 7 old ancestors of the imperial family of the Lin country looked at the 2 experts from the Immortal Palace anxiously. However, the 2 experts from the Immortal Palace did not seem to care about the gazes of the 7 old ancestors of the Lin country. One of them even snorted. A bunch of idiots. After saying that, the 2 Immortal Palace experts disappeared on the spot. A small country of Lin actually dared to provoke the 9 palace masters of the Cloud Palace. Wasn't this courting death? Not directly destroying the country of Lin was already considered polite. Now, that Tyrant only wanted the Emperor of Lin to commit suicide, Immortal Palace naturally would not interfere with such a small matter. Immortal Palace experts of Lin country left. The 7 ancestors of Lin looked at each other. But soon, they sighed and flew to the palace. The palace experts of Lin country. The royal family of the Lin Kingdom did not dare to have the slightest intention of deceiving them. They also knew that in front of an expert at the monk's level, those useless tricks were meaningless. World, 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 world. And the world to world of world to the world to be. World's world, world, world. Was world, 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 world. World to be. World, 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 world to world, world, world. World, 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 world did not to world. World, 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 world. But after Immortal Palace's palace master became the master of the world of primordial world, he merged countless small worlds together and formed a new world of primordial world. The world of primordial world was even more vast than the Great Thousand World. According to Xiao Qin's estimation, there were at least 20 Great Thousand Worlds. Of course, this was not counting the Great Thousand Worlds. In the world of primordial world, there were a total of 108 main continents. These main continents were incomparably vast. Apart from these 108 main continents, there were countless other small continents. They arrived at a huge territory called the world of primordial world. This was the center of the world of primordial world, and also the place where Immortal Palace was located. Standing on the deck and looking from afar, it wasn't difficult to see that the entire world of primordial world was enveloped by a huge array. This wasn't an offensive array or a defensive array because Immortal Palace didn't need these things. With Immortal Palace's ruling power, there wasn't a single force in the world of primordial world that dared to offend Immortal Palace. Therefore, Immortal Palace didn't need any offensive or defensive array to protect the world of primordial world. Just the two words Immortal Palace alone was enough to intimidate all thieves and thieves. This array that enveloped the entire world of primordial world was a pure spirit-gathering array. However, its grade was so high that even the two vice-masters of the Talisman Gate were shocked. Xiaoqian didn't know much about Talisman Dao, but the two vice-masters of the Talisman Gate were very knowledgeable. Looking at the spirit-gathering array that enveloped the entire world of primordial world, the two vice-masters of the Talisman Gate exclaimed in shock. This is a spirit-gathering array that surpasses the immortal grade. That's right, this array has reached the ancestor grade. Monk said with a smile. A spirit-gathering array that surpassed the immortal grade was so huge that it enveloped the entire world of primordial world. It was hard to imagine how rich the world of primordial world was with such a spirit-gathering array. Under the guidance of Tyrant, Daoist Priest, Qin Feng, and the rest, the group entered the Hongmeng continent without a hitch. However, after passing through the spirit-gathering array, Xiao Qun and the rest felt as though they had entered another world. The entire Hongmeng continent's spiritual energy was so dense that it had turned into mist. The air was filled with tiny droplets of spiritual energy, and the entire Hongmeng continent gave people a warm and gentle feeling. The density of the spiritual energy here was no weaker than the cultivation mystic realms in the top 10 Ling Tian sects. The spirit energy of the entire continent had already surpassed the cultivation mystic realms of the 10 great Ling Tian sects. One could imagine how big the gap was between the boundless world and the primordial world. This was the gap between the foundation of both sides. Xiao Qun and the others were shocked, but Tyrant and Daoist Priest remained calm. After all, even though the spiritual energy in the Hongmeng continent was pretty good, the same couldn't be said for the outside world. When they arrived at the center of the Hongmeng world, they saw countless pavilions and pavilions. This was where the Immortal Palace was located. It was indeed a paradise on earth. Beside the Immortal Palace, there was a huge palace floating in the air. Tyrant, Daoist Priest, and the rest brought Xiao Qun to this palace. This palace could be seen as a huge starship. However, compared to a starship, this palace was definitely of a much higher grade. This was the temporary residence of the Cloud Palace's members. Ever since they set off from the boundless world, they had been living in this palace. The spatial spirit boat slowly descended. Qin Feng didn't say anything and left immediately. Compared to Tyrant and Daoist Priest, Qin Feng was extremely cold. Tyrant, on the other hand, personally arranged accommodation for Xiao Chun and the rest. He then smiled at Xiao Chun. "Brother Xiao Chun, please wait for a moment. I will go and see the palace master first. I will send someone to inform you when the time comes." Even with Tyrant's recommendation, Xiao Chun obviously couldn't meet the palace master of the Cloud Palace casually. At the very least, Tyrant had to explain things to him first. In response, Xiao Chun just smiled and nodded. He didn't say anything else. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 2437. Xiao Chun and the others wanted to go back on the Great Thousand World. This was not a big problem for Tyrant, as long as his palace master and the immortal palace master talked about it. Xiao Chun and the others wanted to go back on the Great Thousand World. This was not a big problem for Tyrant, as long as his palace master and the immortal palace master talked about it. There were some things that were difficult to do when the two sides were not on the same level. However, once the two sides were on the same level, it would be very simple. For example, if Xiao Chun were to deal with this matter by himself, he might not even be able to meet the immortal palace master, let alone get him to agree. However, if the palace master of the Cloud Palace was to talk about it, it would be completely different, because the palace master of the Cloud Palace and the immortal palace master were on the same level, since the palace master had spoken, and this was not a difficult matter for the immortal palace master. It was naturally impossible for him to refuse. The monk went to meet the palace lord of the Cloud Palace, while Xiao Chun and the others rested in the cave that the monk had arranged for them. The palace of the Cloud Palace was indeed extraordinary, and the spiritual qi was so abundant that it was astonishing. However, for Xiao Chun, who had been to the World Energy Spring in the Great Thousand World, this was nothing. However, it was different for Long Qing, Xin Yuanling, and the others. They had never seen such abundant world energy before, so they could not help but cultivate. It was definitely a good thing to be able to cultivate here. Everyone was busy cultivating. At night, Xiao Chun felt a little complicated. This time, he came to the Hongmeng world by chance, and it was indeed an eye-opener for Xiao Chun. At the same time, there was an indescribable feeling rising in Xiao Chun's heart. There really is a mountain beyond a mountain, and a person beyond a person. Xiao Chun sighed softly. He felt that the people in the Great Thousand World were indeed frogs at the bottom of a well. However, this cannot be blamed on anyone. After all, no one was born with a high vision. Sometimes one had to experience some things to understand how big the world was. Just like this time, if Xiao Chun did not come to the Hongmeng world by accident, would he know the situation outside the Great Thousand World? Would he know that there were Ancestor Realm Masters above the Emperor Realm? Would he know that there were World Masters in every universe? It was because he saw the vastness of the world with his own eyes that there were so many masters outside of the Great Thousand World that Xiao Chun had such a deep thought. The situation before was still too small. Look at the primordial world and the great world. They had already passed the matter of internal strife long ago. Their eyes were already on the other universes. Of course, Xiao Chun also knew the rules. Xiao Chun did not violate any taboos of the rules to Xiao Chun as obviously everyone knew who Xiao Chun was. He seemed to be someone from another universe who was brought back by the monk and the Taoist priest. They were also very curious about Xiao Chun. He was a cultivator from another universe. They were curious about everything in the Immortal Palace world. Now, there was someone from another universe. Naturally, the Immortal Palace world disciples could not help but want to see how different Xiao Chun was from them. Along the way, Xiao Chun felt the gazes of the Immortal Palace world disciples on him. Similarly, he also secretly sensed these Immortal Palace world disciples. The number of disciples who could follow the Immortal Palace to the Immortal Palace world was not much. There were 10 million of them, but they were all elite disciples of the Immortal Palace. As the master of the Great Thousand World, the Immortal Palace world had more than 1 million disciples. Among these 10 to 20,000 disciples, not a single one of them was lower than the Comprehension Realm. There were even many End Realm disciples. It was not difficult to see how powerful the Immortal Palace world was just from the disciples. One must know that the 10 sword maniacs of the Sword Sect namely Qin Kunlun and the others, were only in the Tao realm. Moreover, they had just broken through not long ago. With such cultivation, they were already the strongest disciples in the sword sect. But in the Immortal Palace, they were ordinary. There was nothing special about them. The Immortal Palace world disciples looked at Xiao Chun curiously. However, no one came to disturb Xiao Chun. At most, they just looked at him curiously. Unknowingly, Xiao Chun did not know where he was. After all, it was his first time in the Immortal Palace. It seemed like he had come to the entrance of a small world. No one stopped. After looking around, Xiao Chun also stepped into the small world curiously. The small world was not big. However, it had green mountains and clear waters. The scenery was picturesque. Looking around, it was indeed a place that did not belong to him. He strolled around. This place was not bad. However, Xiao Chun soon came to the bottom of a waterfall. The water of the waterfall gave off a loud roar. Below was a lake. However, at this moment, there was a young man in gray who was practicing his sword skills on the lake. The young man stood on the lake and waved the long sword in his hand. At times, it was light and agile. At other times, it was domineering and fierce. Xiao Chun had seen this young man before. It was Qin Feng, who had returned with him in the day. He seemed to be one of the 9 palace masters of the Immortal Palace, just like the monk and the Taoist. When he was in the Lin country, Qin Feng's sword had left a deep impression on Xiao Chun. He did not expect to see it again. Looking at the figure of Qin Feng practicing his sword skills, Xiao Chun unknowingly fell into a trance. Xiao Chun could be said to be standing at the peak of the Great Thousand World in terms of sword skills comprehension. Even the experts of the older generation didn't dare to say that they could defeat Xiao Chun in terms of sword skills. Therefore, in the Great Thousand World, Xiao Chun felt lonely at the top because no one could discuss and exchange sword skills with him. Unfortunately, Jun Liao wasn't an expert in sword skills either. However, looking at Qin Feng before him, Xiao Chun felt enlightened. It turned out that the way of sword skills could also be like this. He had to admit that Qin Feng's comprehension of the sword Dao was clearly much deeper than his. Although the sword technique that Qin Feng was brandishing wasn't a superb sword technique, there was no doubt that Qin Feng's understanding had been added into it. In the hands of Qin Feng, such an ordinary sword skill actually gave off a completely different feeling. It was as though there was an additional soul that filled the entire set of sword skills with spirituality. Xiao Chun was in a trance. He was definitely interested in sword skills. Now that he saw someone who could actually comprehend sword skills to such a level, Xiao Chun couldn't help but fall into a trance. All that was left in his eyes was the image of Qin Feng practicing his sword skills. Seeking collection, monthly votes, recommendations. Chapter 2438. Xiao Chun was in a daze. After all, Qin Feng's swordsmanship was the strongest he had ever seen. He thought that his understanding of swordsmanship was close to the peak, but compared to Qin Feng, there was still a big gap. While Xiao Chun was in a daze, Qin Feng, who was practicing his swordsmanship, stabbed his sword towards Xiao Chun without any warning. Qin Feng did not use any cultivation in this attack. He only used a pure swordsmanship attack. Seeing that Qin Feng's sword was piercing toward him like the peak of a mountain, Xiao Chun instinctively moved his mind. The dustless sword instantly appeared in his hand and collided with Qin Feng's long sword. The tip of the 2 long swords collided fiercely. At the same time, neither of them used any spiritual power. After the collision, Qin Feng did not choose to stop. Instead, he stabbed his sword again. Seeing this, Xiao Chun did not show any weakness and also counterattacked. At the lakeside, Xiao Chun and Qin Feng were locked in a fierce battle. Of course, both of them were purely competing with swordsmanship. However, as time passed, Xiao Chun gradually fell into a disadvantageous position when it came to swordsmanship. Compared to Qin Feng, Xiao Chun's understanding of swordsmanship was indeed a little lacking. This was undeniable. Even if they did not use their cultivation, Qin Feng could still rely on his own understanding of swordsmanship to gradually gain the upper hand. However, even if he was at a disadvantage, Xiao Chun still benefited a lot. Originally, in the Great Thousand World, Xiao Chen's swordsmanship could be said to have reached a plateau. After all, as a swordsman, Xiao Chun could be considered to be at the top of the Great Thousand World. No one could surpass him in terms of pure understanding of swordsmanship, including those sovereigns. Because there was no opponent in the Great Thousand World, Xiao Chen's swordsmanship had improved very slowly in recent years. This was something that could not be helped. When anything reached a peak, it would become extremely difficult to improve and break through again. After all, it was too difficult to surpass the peak. However, now, Qin Feng's appearance was like telling Xiao Chun that his swordsmanship was far from reaching the peak. In addition, with a sword master like Qin Feng, Xiao Chun could clearly feel that his swordsmanship was improving rapidly. This was like many things that one thought were perfect suddenly became not so perfect. There were mistakes and loopholes, because only in this way would there be room for improvement. However, if one thought that something was perfect and there were no loopholes, it would be the most difficult to improve it. Just like Xiao Chun before, he was unable to find any major mistakes in his own swordsmanship. Under such circumstances, it would be very difficult for Xiao Chun to improve his swordsmanship. It could even be said that it was impossible for him to do so. However, now, as he fought with Qin Feng, Xiao Chun found that, or rather, Qin Feng pointed out many loopholes in Xiao Chen's swordsmanship. Originally, it should have been perfect, but under Qin Feng's sword, there were loopholes. As a result, Xiao Chun naturally had the most intuitive feeling. He sighed in his heart. It turns out that my swordsmanship still has so many loopholes. The battle did not last long. After about 15 minutes, Qin Feng took the initiative to stop his movements. Seeing this, Xiao Chun did not continue to attack, although he felt that it was not enough. Qin Feng's long sword was sheathed. His face was calm as he looked at Xiao Chun without the slightest expression. Your talent is not bad, but your understanding of swordsmanship is not enough. This was the first time that someone said that his understanding of swordsmanship was not enough. However, Xiao Chun did not refute this. He knew that Qin Feng was telling the truth. This was because Xiao Chun had sensed from the very beginning that Qin Feng had already gone easy on him during the fight. Otherwise, he would not have been able to hold on for so long. Moreover, rather than saying that they were exchanging pointers, it was better to say that Qin Feng was giving him pointers. After all, with Xiao Chen's current strength, he was far from qualified to exchange pointers with Qin Feng. Regardless of whether it was the understanding of swordsmanship or the cultivation realm, there was a big gap between Xiao Chun and Qin Feng. Hearing Qin Feng's words, Xiao Chun cupped his hands and bowed. Thank you, senior. Although Qin Feng looked about the same age as him, Xiao Chun still respectfully addressed him as senior. Regarding this, Qin Feng did not say anything. He turned around, looked at the lake in the distance, and said faintly, "The monk said that you came from a universe called the Great Thousand World?" "Yes." Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded and replied, "The Great Thousand World, how is it? It can't be compared to the primordial world and the Great World." Qin Feng was also curious about the Great Thousand World. Therefore, he asked. Xiao Chun also answered truthfully. Compared to the primordial world and the Great World, the Great Thousand World was indeed not comparable. It was the result of being completely crushed in all aspects. Hearing Xiao Chun's answer, Qin Feng's expression did not change much. After a moment of silence, he said faintly, "Do you know how many realms there are?" "The realms of swordsmanship?" Xiao Chun had never heard of this before. Seeing this, Qin Feng did not wait for Xiao Chun to reply. He allowed a breath of turbid air and continued. At the initial stage of swordsmanship, comprehending the way of swordsmanship, becoming one with the sword, having the sword in the heart, no sword in the heart, and the way of swordsmanship is divine. Qin Feng said slowly. Hearing Qin Feng's words, Xiao Chun frowned slightly. Xiao Chun had indeed never come into contact with the realms of swordsmanship. However, after hearing Qin Feng's words, Xiao Chun had a slight understanding. At the initial stage of swordsmanship, comprehending the way of swordsmanship, becoming one with the sword, having the sword in the heart, Xiao Chun could understand what these meant. However, There was no sword in the heart, and the way of swordsmanship is divine. Xiao Chen did not know what it meant. Seeing that Xiao Chen was frowning and deep in thought, Qin Feng continued. Your current realm should be having the sword in the heart, but you have not reached the state of having no sword in the heart. Senior, please enlighten me. Hearing this, Xiao Chen cupped his hands and bowed. He did not feel that it was a shameful thing to ask Qin Feng for advice. After all, Qin Feng was stronger than him. Moreover, Xiao Chen did not have a sword in the heart. If a sword cultivator did not have a sword in the heart, then what was he cultivating? Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Qin Feng threw the sword in his hand to the side and said slowly, having no sword in the heart is not giving up, but having no self. Only by having no self can one reach the peak and comprehend the true essence of swordsmanship. Following Qin Feng's words, Xiao Chen could clearly feel that there was no longer any sword aura around Qin Feng's body. It was as if he was not a sword cultivator at all. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the originally calm surface of the lake seemed to have been cut by a sword. The entire lake was instantly split into two. Seeing this scene, Xiao Chen was stunned. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 2439. The surface of the lake wasn't very big, yet it had been directly split into two. The sword aura didn't give off a sharp feeling, but it was precisely because of this that it made people shudder even more. A heavy sword without a sharp edge. It was not that Qin Feng's sword Qi did not have a sharp edge, but it gave off a feeling that it had been washed clean. Its sharpness was restrained, and its power was even stronger. Time slowly passed, and the lake returned to its calm state. At this time, Qin Feng looked at Xiao Chen and said without a change in his expression, as I said before, your talent is not bad, but perhaps because of the problem of the cultivation environment, you have reached a bottleneck. If you do not have a great opportunity, it will be difficult for you to break through. Let me give you a suggestion. Stay in the Cloud Palace and the Hongmeng world. It will not be too long, at most 3 years. You will not regret the result. After saying this, Qin Feng did not wait for Xiao Chen to reply and immediately left. Qin Feng did not lie about Xiao Chen's talent. This trip to let Xiao Chen temporarily stay in the Cloud Palace and the Hongmeng world was Qin Feng's sincere suggestion. In Qin Feng's eyes, it was not difficult to see that Xiao Chen was a piece of unpolished jade. In terms of talent, Xiao Chen was above Qin Feng. But why was Xiao Chen's cultivation still only at the half-step emperor realm? To put it bluntly, it was because of the cultivation environment. Thinking about it, the strongest in the Great Thousand World were only the 2 half-step ancestor realm masters, Jun Wuya and Xie Tian. To be honest, Jun Wuya and Xie Tian's half-step ancestor realm masters had more to do with luck. This was because the Great Thousand World did not have any records of those above the emperor realm. Throughout history, the strongest in the Great Thousand World had always been at the Emperor realm. In this way, to a certain extent, the Great Thousand World had limited Xiao Chen's progress. Now, Xiao Chen felt as if he had reached the peak of the Great Thousand World, and there was an insurmountable mountain in front of him. If he wanted to climb this mountain, Xiao Chen would have to pay a great price. One had to fumble about on their own, try things out on their own. This way, it was hard to avoid taking many detours. However, in the primordial world, Cloud Palace and Immortal Palace, there was no such problem at all. This was because regardless of whether it was the Cloud Palace or the Immortal Palace, they both had perfect cultivation systems. Compared to the Great Thousand World, if Xiao Chen stayed in the Cloud Palace, he would definitely obtain more. Furthermore, the speed of his improvement would obviously be faster. Of course, Qin Feng said this only because he thought that Xiao Chen was a good person. He didn't want a bright pearl to be covered in dust. As for the final decision, it still depended on what the Palace Lord thought. If the Palace Lord of the Cloud Palace wasn't willing, then Xiao Chen obviously couldn't do anything. However, Qin Feng's words before he left had planted a seed in Xiao Chen's heart. In the beginning, the reason why he was in a hurry to return to the Great Thousand World was because he was afraid of the situation there. After all, the battle between the good and evil was not over yet. However, on the other hand, with his current cultivation, what could he do even if he returned to the Great Thousand World? He still couldn't control the development of the Great Thousand World. But what if Shao Chun broke through to the Ancestor Realm? If he returned to the Great Thousand World with his Ancestor Realm cultivation, he would be an invincible existence in the entire Great Thousand World. However, it was especially easy to step into the Ancestor Realm. Jun Wuya and Xie Tian had been stuck at the half-step Ancestor Realm for so many years, but they still hadn't really stepped into the Ancestor Realm. On one hand, he was worried about the situation in the Great Thousand World, worried about his parents, Qin Shi, Underflower Fairy, and the children, but on the other hand, Shao Chun had to admit that Qin Feng's words had moved him. With complicated feelings, Shao Chun returned to his residence. When Shao Chun returned, Xian Yuan Ling and Long Qing, who had finished their cultivation, were already waiting for him. In the courtyard, seeing Shao Chun walking over with a pensive expression, Long Qing couldn't help but ask, "Little brother, what's wrong with you? You look like you have something on your mind." "Big brother, second sister, do you think that we've made the right choice to return to the Great Thousand World in a hurry?" Shao Chun asked softly. He told the two of them about his encounter with Qin Feng. After hearing Shao Chun's words, Xian Yuan Ling and Long Qing obviously knew what Shao Chun was thinking. The three of them sat together, and Xian Yuan Ling said after a long silence, "Third brother, are you worried about the current situation in the Great Thousand World?" "Yes. Actually, I think you're thinking too much, third brother. We've launched a surprise attack on the evil God Palace, and now Leaping Tiger City has been successfully captured by the sovereigns. With Leaping Tiger City and Mausoleum City in our hands, our Great Thousand World has taken the initiative in the entire war. Although I don't dare to say that we can destroy the evil God Palace, at least we can protect ourselves. As long as we can take control of Leaping Tiger City and Mausoleum City, the evil God Palace can only hole up in the Hetian Prefecture," Xian Yuan Ling said indifferently. Hearing this, Shao Chun fell into deep thought. Indeed, Xian Yuan Ling's words were not without reason. With Leaping Tiger City and Mausoleum City in their hands, the Great Thousand World had taken the initiative in the war. At least, there was no problem in maintaining a stalemate. Moreover, if they did not take down Leaping Tiger City and Mausoleum City, the evil God Palace would not be able to rush out of the Hetian Prefecture, nor would they be able to pose a threat to the rest of the Great Thousand World. Seeing that Shao Chun had fallen into deep thought, Xian Yuan Ling paused for a moment, then continued, "So third brother's worries are unnecessary. On the contrary, I think that Qin Feng is right. After all, this is a great opportunity for us. If we can improve our strength when we return to the Great Thousand World, we can make the final decision and completely end the war between the good and evil." From what Xian Yuan Ling said, he agreed with Qin Feng's suggestion. Hearing this, Shao Chun did not answer, but he also did not object. It was a silent night. Throughout the night, Shao Chun had been thinking about this matter. Should he return to the Great Thousand World immediately or stay in the Cloud Palace? After a night, Shao Chun finally made a decision. When the next morning came, the monk really came. He strode into the courtyard, and when he saw Shao Chun, he immediately laughed loudly. "Haha, brother Shao Chun, the matter has been settled. The palace master wants to see you now." The monk's words clearly meant that the palace master of the Cloud Palace had agreed to his request to help him return to the Great Thousand World. Hearing this, Shao Chun also got up and bowed to the monk. "Thank you, master, but I still have something to discuss with you." Then, Shao Chun truthfully told the monk about his encounter with Qin Feng by the lake last night, as well as what Qin Feng said to him. In the end, Shao Chun said with a serious expression, "Although I know that saying this is a bit too whimsical, after all, I am not a disciple of the Cloud Palace, but if possible, I still hope to stay in the Cloud Palace to cultivate and improve my strength." In front of the monk, Shao Chun did not have any hypocrisy. After all, in front of an ancestor like the monk, those boring twists and turns were obviously meaningless. It was better to directly say what was in his heart. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2440. Xiao Chun said without hiding anything. Upon hearing this, Tyrant did not look too surprised. Instead, he smiled and said, "That's right, Qin Feng is right. After all, this is indeed a great opportunity for Brother Xiao Chun." Xiao Chun said without hiding anything. Upon hearing this, Tyrant did not look too surprised. Instead, he smiled and said, "That's right, Qin Feng is right. After all, this is indeed a great opportunity for Brother Xiao Chun." Tyrant did not have the slightest intention of blaming Qin Feng. However, after saying this, Tyrant paused and looked at Xiao Chun. He said slowly, "However, this is not something that I can decide. It depends on what my palace master says." Xiao Chun wanted to stay in the Cloud Palace to cultivate. As such, he naturally needed the cultivation resources of the Cloud Palace. However, if he wanted to use the cultivation resources of the Cloud Palace, he would have to ask for the palace master's permission. Upon hearing Tyrant's words, Xiao Chun nodded and said, "Of course. Then follow me. The palace master is already waiting for you." Tyrant got up and said with a smile. After speaking to Gu Lingyao and the other two girls, Xiao Chun left alone with Tyrant. This was the first time that Xiao Chun had met the palace master of the Cloud Palace. He was curious about what kind of person the so-called world master was. Xiao Chun already knew from Tyrant that the world master was an existence that surpassed the ancestor state. He was the strongest person in a part of the universe. Xiao Chun had seen Tyrant's strength with his own eyes. He was definitely an existence that could destroy the world. With Tyrant's strength, he alone was enough to cause the great thousand world to fall into a crisis of destruction. Xiao Chun was naturally curious about the palace master of the Cloud Palace, who was even stronger than Tyrant. Under Tyrant's lead, Xiao Chun came to the depths of the Cloud Palace without any obstructions. Through the entrance of a small world, Xiao Chun came to the place where the palace master of the Cloud Palace lived. It was a very simple, small world, but the scenery was beautiful. Moreover, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth was rich to a terrifying extent. There was a drizzle in the sky, but this drizzle was not ordinary rain. It was water droplets condensed from spiritual qi. Compared to the outside world, the spirit qi in this small world was several times richer. Aside from the spirit qi spring, Xiao Chun had never seen another place with such rich spirit qi in this world. The air was filled with a faint fragrance. Following behind the monk, Xiao Chun soon arrived outside a simple thatched hut. At this moment, a young man in a green robe was brewing tea in the open space outside the house. He was extraordinarily handsome, and his every move gave off a comfortable feeling like a spring breeze. Sensing the arrival of the monk and the young man lifted his head and looked over. When he saw the monk, the young man smiled and said, "You're here." As he spoke, his gaze shifted from the monk to Xiao Chun. He did not reveal any aura, and because of the faint smile on the young man's face, Xiao Chun even felt a sense of familiarity. In fact, in terms of appearance, Xiao Chun did not belong to the young man in front of him. Today, Xiao Chun was dressed in a snow-white robe. His eyebrows were sharp and his eyes were bright. He was also extraordinarily handsome, but compared to the young man, Xiao Chun lacked a different aura. He did not have the slightest bit of arrogance. The young man merely sized up Xiao Chun, then smiled and said, "Have a seat." Hearing this, the monk did not stand on ceremony. He sat down beside the young man and said to the young man with a playful smile, "This is Brother Xiao Chun that I mentioned yesterday." As he spoke, the monk said to Xiao Chun, "Brother Xiao Chun, this is my palace master, Lin Yun. Junior, Xiao Chun greets Senior." Hearing this, Xiao Chun also cupped his hands and bowed. From the beginning to the end, Lin Yun did not give Xiao Chun any pressure. However, Xiao Chun did not have the slightest contempt because of this. On the contrary, because of the refreshing feeling that Lin Yun gave off, Xiao Chun became more and more curious and fearful of Lin Yun. Lin Yun seemed to be about the same age as him, but Xiao Chun felt a kind of aura from Lin Yun that he had never seen before. It was as if she was born to make people have a good impression of her. In the face of Xiao Chun's greeting, Lin Yun smiled and waved her hand nonchalantly. "Sit." After taking a seat, Lin Yun personally made a cup of tea for Xiao Chun, then asked with a smile, "I heard from the monk that you came from a universe called the Great Thousand World." "That's right. That's interesting. Can you tell me about the situation of the Great Thousand World?" Lin Yun was also very curious about the Great Thousand World. After all, it was a universe that she had never understood. In this regard, Xiao Chun did not hide anything and truthfully told Lin Yun about the situation of the Great Thousand World. He was not worried that Lin Yun had any evil intentions towards the Great Thousand World. After all, with Lin Yun's cultivation realm and strength, if he really wanted to harm the Great Thousand World, then it did not matter whether Xiao Chun said it or not. Lin Yun would not have anything to do with it. Moreover, Lin Yun seemed to have a kind of magical power that would involuntarily make people willing to believe him and take the initiative to get close to him. The three of them drank tea, while Xiao Chun talked about what he had heard about the Great Thousand World. After listening to Xiao Chun's story, Lin Yun slowly said, "In that case, the Great Thousand World has yet to have a world lord." "Yes." Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded and replied, "A universe without a world lord, and the martial arts civilization of the Great Thousand World seemed to have only developed to the level of the Emperor realm. The strongest person was only at the half-step ancestor realm, and it was only by chance that they took this half-step." For a moment, Lin Yun had some understanding of the Great Thousand World. It seemed that the strength of this universe should not be strong, at least far inferior to the Hongmeng world and the Great World. He learned a lot about the Great Thousand World from Xiao Chun. At the same time, a young woman appeared in front of the three of them. Her appearance was unparalleled, comparable to Qin Shiru and Bai Hua Fairy. As soon as the woman appeared, she smiled and said to Lin Yun, "Husband, Bing Ning, you're back." Hearing this, Lin Yun also responded with a smile. The woman's name was Lu Bingning, and she was one of Lin Yun's wives. Under the monk's introduction, Xiao Chun also bowed to Lu Bingning. His eyes were clear, and he did not look at Lu Bingning too much. After all, she was his wife, and Xiao Chun still knew this etiquette. After introducing each other, Lu Bingning looked at Lin Yun and seemed to want to say something, but hesitated. Seeing this, Lin Yun asked with a smile, "What's wrong? Is there something that you can't tell me?" Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Lu Bingning said with a helpless expression, "Feng, killed a palace lord of a mortal palace, and he is still in a mortal palace. It is said that the palace lord of a mortal palace is furious. Sister Lan Shi and the others have already rushed over." Hearing Lu Bingning's words, Lin Yun was slightly taken aback, but soon he laughed and said, "This kid is getting more and more lawless. Please collect, please vote, please recommend." Chapter 2441. Originally, Xiao Chun planned to tell Lin Yun that he wanted to stay in the Cloud Palace to cultivate. He hoped that Lin Yun would agree. However, before he could say anything, such a thing happened. Immortal Palace had 10 Great Hall Masters. Their status was the same as the 10 sword maniacs of the sword sect. They were the real outstanding talents among all the disciples. Their status was very high. Moreover, the 10 Great Hall Masters of Immortal Palace were all disciples of the Palace Master of Immortal Palace. As a result, their status was even higher. A Palace Hall disciple had been killed for the Celestial Palace. This was a huge matter, but the person who killed him was not simple either. It could even be said that the person who killed him was not inferior to the 10 Palace Hall disciples, because the person who killed him was called Lin Feng, Lin Yun's only son. Lin Yun had a son and a daughter. The son's name was Lin Feng, and the daughter's name was Lin Shui. Lin Feng was the one who killed the Great Hall Master of Immortal Palace. It was no wonder that Lu Bingning personally came to ask Lin Yun to come forward. After all, the trouble Lin Feng caused this time was not small. Lin Yun definitely had to come forward. But from Lin Yun's expression, she didn't seem to take it to heart. If someone else had killed a Great Hall Master of Immortal Palace, they would have panicked and their expressions would have changed greatly. However, Lin Yun still had a gentle smile on her face. There was no change in her expression at all. In the eyes of others, it was a major event. However, for Lin Yun, it was nothing. This came from her confidence in her own strength. Because of this confidence, Lin Yun didn't feel nervous at all. After saying that, Lin Yun turned to look at Xiao Chun and said with an apologetic smile, "Xiao Chun, I originally planned to drink with you today. Now it seems that I have to postpone it." Upon hearing Lin Yun's words, Xiao Chun also replied with a smile, "Palace Master Lin, you're exaggerating. There will be plenty of time for drinking wine in the future. However, if Palace Master Lin doesn't mind, I would like to do my part for today's matter." Lin Feng had killed the Celestial Palace's young master. That could be a big or small thing. Of course, the final result depended on Lin Yun and the Celestial Palace's leader. But at that moment, Xiao Chun had to make his position clear. He was willing to go with Lin Yun, which meant that Xiao Chun was willing to stand with Yin Palace. With Xiao Chun's current level of cultivation, he couldn't influence much at all. He couldn't even influence the battle between the righteous and evil, let alone the Cloud Palace and the Immortals' Hall. However, Xiao Chun only said this to express his attitude. After hearing Xiao Chun's words, Lu Bingning also looked at Xiao Chun curiously. Looking at this young man who was as handsome as her husband, Lu Bingning was curious. Is he the person from the Great Thousand World that my husband mentioned? Obviously, Lu Bingning had also heard about Xiao Chun and the Great Thousand World. Lu Bingning was also very curious about this universe that she had never been to or even heard of. Lu Bingning looked at Xiao Chun curiously. After hearing Xiao Chun's words, Lin Yun didn't hesitate and said with a smile, "That's good. Xiao Chun, come with me to the Immortals' Hall." She didn't refuse Xiao Chun. Of course, Lin Yun didn't think that Xiao Chun could help. In Lin Yun's opinion, it was also good to let Xiao Chun get in touch with the Immortals' Hall. Moreover, she didn't know how to put it. When facing Xiao Chun, Lin Yun always felt like she saw her old self in him. This feeling was very strange, but also very interesting. Immediately, the three of them rushed directly to the Immortals' Hall. The monk wanted to go with them, but Lin Yun didn't hesitate to refuse because of the temperament of the monk. If one were to ask who among the 9 palace masters of the Cloud Palace was the most troublesome, everyone would say without hesitation, the monk from the Buddha Palace, the Taoist from the Tao Palace, Lu Tao from the Medicine Palace, and Guan Rinjia from the Weapon Palace. These 4 guys were definitely troublemakers, so Lin Yun rejected the monk without hesitation. This made the monk, who was originally looking forward to it, instantly deflate. With Xiao Chun, the 3 of them quickly arrived at the Cloud Palace. Along the way, Xiao Chun was also surprised by Lu Bingning's cultivation. This woman, who didn't look inferior to Qin Shu and the other women, was also an Ancestor Realm expert. This was something that Xiao Chun didn't expect. However, since she could become Lin Yun's wife, it couldn't be purely because of her good looks. Lin Yun, Lu Bingning, and Xiao Chun directly landed in front of the main hall of the Immortals' Hall. At a glance, they saw the 5 beautiful women and the 2 young men and women who were surrounded by many Immortals' Hall experts. The 7 of them were surrounded by many Immortals' Hall experts. At the same time, the Immortals' Hall experts were all furious, and some of them even revealed killing intent in their eyes. In response, the smile on Lin Yun's face slowly disappeared. She gently swung her sleeve, and instantly, a terrifying force erupted. Without any resistance, the Immortals' Hall experts were directly sent flying. Even a few Ancestor Realm experts couldn't resist Lin Yun's force. The strength of a World Lord was far stronger than an Ancestor Realm expert. After easily repelling everyone, Lin Yun, accompanied by Lu Bingning, strode to the front of the 7 people. Then, she said with an indifferent expression, "Mu Lingxian, come out and have a chat." Lin Yun wasn't in the mood to pay attention to these Immortals' Hall experts. It was very simple. They weren't qualified to talk to Lin Yun, let alone negotiate. Lin Yun looked at her only son, Ling Feng, and slapped Lin Feng's head. Lin Yun scolded angrily, "Boy, you're getting more and more lawless. Let's see how I'll deal with you when we get back." "Dad, you can't blame me for this. They asked for it." Hearing this, Lin Feng looked at Lin Yun with a rebellious face and said. Hearing Lin Feng's words, Lin Yun's eyebrows twitched. This brat dared to talk back. Lin Yun was about to hit him again, But a beautiful woman on the side protected Lin Feng first and then whispered, "How can you talk to your father like that?" Saying that, the woman pulled Lin Feng behind her. It seemed that she was reprimanding Lin Feng, but in fact, it was completely to protect him. In the face of the woman's action, Lin Yun was stunned and then sighed helplessly. This boy was completely spoiled by his mothers. It was as if he didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Looking at the conversation between Lin Yun and Lin Feng, Xiao Chun naturally didn't interrupt. This time, he came as an invisible person, but Liu Bingning took the initiative to introduce the identities of several people to Xiao Chun. The young man and woman were naturally Xiao Chun's children. The man's name was Lin Feng, and the woman's name was Lin Shui. The other 5 beautiful women were the other 5 wives of Lin Yun, namely Lan Shi, Mo Qing Lu, Shi Zijin, Ren Ting, and Qing Zhu. Please collect monthly vote recommend. Chapter 2442. After knowing the identities of Lan Shi and the others, as well as Lin Feng and Lin Shui, Xiao Chun didn't say much. After all, with his cultivation level, he obviously didn't have much say at this time. Xiao Chun knew that. After knowing the identities of Lan Shi and the others, as well as Lin Feng and Lin Shui, Xiao Chun didn't say much. After all, with his cultivation level, he obviously didn't have much say at this time. Xiao Chun knew that. At the same time, while Lin Yun was teaching Lin Yun a lesson, a young man slowly walked out of the main hall. He was wearing a purple gold robe and looked at Lin Yun with a smile on his face. "Brother Lin Yun, you're a rare guest." The young man was Mu Ling Xian, the leader of the Immortal Palace and also the world master of the Hongmeng world. He didn't show up before because Lin Yun didn't show up. Mu Ling Xian didn't have much to say to Lan Shi and the others. Mu Ling Xian showed up and exchanged a few words with Lin Yun. Then, everyone entered the main hall. Mu Ling Xian didn't look at Xiao Chun from the beginning to the end. Mu Ling Xian naturally knew Xiao Chun's identity. After all, in the Hongmeng world, there weren't many things that could be hidden from Mu Ling Xian. Moreover, the 2 strong cultivators of the Immortal Palace had already seen Xiao Chun in Lin Country. However, with Xiao Chun's cultivation level, it was obviously not enough for Mu Ling Xian to pay attention to him. After entering the main hall, Mu Ling Xian and Lin Yun took their seats. Mu Ling Xian looked at Xiao Chun standing behind Lin Yun and said with a smile, "Are you from the Great Thousand World?" "Yes, Xiao Chun. This is the leader of the Immortal Palace, Mu Ling Xian," Lin Yun said and introduced Mu Ling Xian to Xiao Chun. In response, Xiao Chun cupped his hands together and bowed. On the other hand, Mu Ling Xian sized up Xiao Chun curiously and nodded without saying anything. She shifted her gaze to Lin Yun again and spoke slowly. "Brother Lin Yun, you should know my identity as Immortal Palace's palace child." Lin Feng had killed a member of the Celestial Palace, so Mu Ling Xian didn't beat around the bush. When Lin Feng heard Mu Ling Xian, he was annoyed, but he didn't dare say anything. Lin Yun said indifferently, "Of course, but I'm more curious about the cause of this matter." Lin Feng had killed a member of the Celestial Palace. That was a fact, but Lin Feng couldn't have killed a member of the Celestial Palace for no reason. Asked Lin Yun to Lin Feng, without waiting for Mu Ling Xian to reply. "Feng, tell me, why did you kill that prince?" Lin Yun didn't give Mu Ling Xian a chance to refuse. When Lin Feng heard Mu Ling Xian's words, he told her the truth. In fact, the matter wasn't complicated. A few days ago, Lin Feng and Lin Shui went out, but they met the palace child and a few disciples of the Celestial Palace. At the beginning, that Celestial Palace disciple had provoked Lin Feng, but Lin Feng had ignored him. In the end, that disciple had even insulted the Yun Palace. Lin Feng couldn't tolerate that. They had a conflict, and Lin Feng had immediately killed that Celestial Palace disciple. After listening to Lin Feng's story, Lin Yun still had a smile on her face and said to Mu Ling Xian, "Brother Mu, how is it? Did you hear what happened?" Lin Feng didn't kill people for no reason. That Celestial Palace disciple had provoked him and humiliated the Yun Palace. Therefore, Lin Feng had to kill him. It was reasonable. However, in the face of Lin Yun's question, Mu Lingxian's expression didn't change. No matter what, my palace child was killed by your son. You have to give me an explanation. The cause of the matter was a quarrel. Both sides were in the wrong, but Lin Feng killed him. Mu Lingxian couldn't just let go. After all, Mu Lingxian also wanted to save face. His palace child was killed. As the palace leader and teacher, if Mu Lingxian didn't say anything, people would think that the palace child was afraid of the Yun Palace. Mu Lingxian definitely wanted Lin Yun to give an explanation. Lin Yun wasn't surprised. She still smiled at Mu Lingxian. Lin Yun said indifferently, "What explanation do you want?" If Mu Lingxian wanted Lin Yun to hand over Lin Feng, that would be impossible. If Mu Lingxian wanted Lin Yun to give him some compensation, Lin Yun would agree. But Mu Lingxian probably didn't need that because Celestial Palace didn't lack cultivation resources. Mu Lingxian looked at Lin Yun. He really didn't want any compensation because the palace child didn't lack it. The two looked at each other for a long time. Finally, Mu Lingxian said, "My palace child has a rule. Anyone who violates the rules will be triggered. However, there is a path of immortals and demons. As long as you can walk through it, you can avoid being triggered. Let Lin Feng go to the path of immortals and demons. If he can walk through it, I won't pursue this matter." Immortal Palace did have such a rule, but the path of immortals and demons was extremely dangerous. Even if an Emperor Realm cultivator entered, there was a 90% chance of death. Lin Feng was only an End Realm cultivator. If he entered the path of immortals and demons, he would definitely die. Mu Lingxian's request was to give himself a way out. Lin Feng had killed someone, a member of the Celestial Shrine. Therefore, according to the rules of the Celestial Shrine, they couldn't let Lin Feng off. However, if Lin Feng entered the Celestial and Demon Road, Gu Lingyao would have a reason not to pursue the matter, and nobody would say anything. However, after hearing Mu Lingxian's words, Lin Yun refused without thinking. Impossible. Lin Yun had also heard of the dangers of the path of immortals and demons. It could be said that the path of immortals and demons was specially used to punish those who violated the rules of Immortal Palace. No matter what kind of crime, as long as one entered the path of immortals and demons, regardless of life or death, it would be written off. If one died inside, then there was no need to talk about it. If one could come out alive, then their previous crimes would be forgotten. However, for so many years, there seemed to be no one who could pass through the path of immortals and demons alive. Those who entered the path of immortals and demons basically died inside. There was no one who could safely leave the path of immortals and demons. Therefore, in the face of Mu Lingxian's request, Lin Yun refused without thinking. Letting Lin Feng enter the path of immortals and demons was absolutely impossible. Seeing Lin Yun refuse, Mu Lingxian's eyes flashed with a touch of coldness, and his tone gradually became colder. "Brother Lin Yun, so you don't intend to give me an explanation? It's not that I don't want to give you an explanation, but Lin Yun, can't afford to give you an explanation, and I don't want to give you one." Hearing this, Lin Yun also replied, not to be outdone. Looking at the gradually rising coldness around the two, Lu Bingning and the other girls beside Lin Yun all showed a wry smile, and Lan she whispered in a low voice. As expected, the girls were very clear about Lin Yun's character. She was a person who could be persuaded by reason, but not cowed by force. Mu Lingxian was so aggressive. With Lin Yun's character, it was naturally impossible for her to make the slightest concession. Even if there was an all-out war with Immortal Palace, Lin Yun would not make the slightest concession. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. End of chapter. Chapter 2443. As Lin Yun's wives, Lu Bingning and the other women naturally understood their husband's character. Since they were young, Lin Yun was not a person who would admit defeat. In fact, Lin Yun was the same as Xiao Chun. They were both people who came from a small place in the great world. As the first woman Lin Yun met, Lu Bingning was very clear that when Lin Yun was at the Iron Gate Pass in the Yanhuang country, the young Lin Yun's character was already extremely unyielding. After so many years, Lin Yun might have changed a lot. She had matured and become more stable, but the arrogance in her bones had not changed at all. Although Mu Lingxian was the world lord of the Hongmeng world and had the same status as Lin Yun, it was absolutely impossible for Mu Lingxian to make Lin Yun bow her head. Not to mention, Mu Lingxian wanted Lin Yun to send her only son into the immortal demon road. This was even more whimsical. If Mu Lingxian only wanted some compensation, and then both sides would have a way out, perhaps Lin Yun would agree. However, this was not what Mu Lingxian wanted. Lu Bingning and the other women smiled bitterly, as if they already knew what was going to happen next. Xiao Chun was silent. This level of confrontation was not something that Xiao Chun could intervene in. After hearing Lin Yun's straightforward rejection, Mu Lingxian, who was sitting on the main seat, looked at Lin Yun and said coldly, "Lin Yun, this is the Hongmeng world, not your great world. My immortal palace is not someone who can be bullied as you wish." Hearing Mu Lingxian's words, Lin Yun sneered and slowly stood up. Then, a towering aura erupted from her body. Almost instantly, the main hall was overturned by Lin Yun's aura. Outside the palace, there were still quite a few experts from Immortal Palace gathered. They weren't prepared at all, and the palace was directly shattered by a wave of terrifying aura. As the great hall shattered, Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, and the others' figures appeared in the crowd's mouths. At this moment, the experts of the Immortal Palace also saw Lin Yun, who was dressed in green clothes and standing proudly, as well as their palace master, who was sitting on the main seat with an extremely ugly expression. But before anyone could recover from their shock, Lin Yun's cold voice had already shocked everyone. "Mu Lingxian, if you want an explanation, I'll give it to you. Cloud Palace disciples, listen up. Today, this one is going to wipe out Immortal Palace." Lin Yun's voice clearly spread throughout the entire Immortal Palace. Of course, it also reached the Cloud Palace in Immortal Palace. At every corner of Immortal Palace, many disciples heard Lin Yun's words and were all stunned. What was going on? Someone wanted to destroy Immortal Palace? Was this a joke? As the only overlord of the primordial world, who dared to go against Immortal Palace, let alone destroy Immortal Palace? This was simply a joke. However, unlike the ordinary disciples, the elders and core disciples of Immortal Palace knew what was going on and also knew who said those words just now. At this moment, in a cave in Immortal Palace, two middle-aged men were sitting opposite each other. After hearing Lin Yun's words, one of them revealed a bitter smile and said, "It seems like the negotiations have broken down. Sai, let's go. Today, we can't avoid a battle with those lunatics from Cloud Palace." Hearing this, the other person smiled helplessly. These two people were one of the 9 palace masters of Immortal Palace. Like Cloud Palace, the 9 palace masters of Immortal Palace were also Ancestor Realm experts. Their strength wasn't any weaker than the 9 palace masters of Cloud Palace. The experts of Immortal Palace hurried towards the Great Hall. At the same time, in Cloud Palace, many disciples of Cloud Palace rushed into the sky one by one after hearing Lin Yun's words. Perhaps some of them didn't know what was going on, but since their palace master said to destroy Immortal Palace, then they must destroy Immortal Palace. This was the thought of many disciples of Cloud Palace. They believed in their palace master, so in their hearts, they only needed to carry out their palace master's orders. Inside the cave, the monk and the Taoist stood up with smiles on their faces. A wretched smile hung on their faces as they patted their fat tummies and said with a wretched look on their faces, "It seems like Mu Lingxian has really angered the palace master. Interesting. Monk and Taoist didn't mind watching a show." In Qin Feng's cave, after hearing this, Qin Feng didn't say a word. He stood up, took his sword, and disappeared. In Medicine Palace, 3 young men also stood up after hearing Lin Yun's words. These 3 people were Lu Tao, Guan Renjia, and Li Tian. They were the palace masters of Medicine Palace, Weapon Palace, and Array Palace. Among them, Lu Tao was the palace master of Medicine Palace. Lin Yun was his brother-in-law, and his sister was Lu Bingning. "Let's go." Li Tian, the palace master of Array Palace, took the lead and disappeared. 8 Palace was the undisputed number 1 palace in Cloud 9 palaces. As the palace master, Lin Yuan was not only recognized as the strongest among the palace masters, but also because he was Lin Yun's sworn brother. At this moment, after hearing Lin Yun's order, an elder of 8 palace had a slight change in expression. He looked at Lin Yuan and said, "Palace master, this?" Clearly, this elder was frightened by Lin Yun's words. What a joke. Cloud Palace was indeed powerful, but Immortal Palace wasn't a pushover either. As an overlord of the universe, Immortal Palace was completely capable of fighting against Cloud Palace. Why did their palace master directly give the order to destroy Immortal Palace after making a trip to Immortal Palace? Moreover, this was the primordial world, their territory. Cloud Palace wouldn't gain any advantage if they fought. The best result would be both sides suffering. He looked at Lin Yuan worriedly. However, in response to this, a young man with a sturdy body and naked body stood up and said indifferently, "Big Brother said to destroy Immortal Palace. Then let's do it." As soon as his voice fell, the sturdy young man disappeared. This person was Lin Yuan, the number 1 palace master of Cloud 9 palaces. He was Lin Yun's sworn brother. Not only the people of Immortal Palace, but Xin Yuan Ling and Long Qing, who were also in Cloud Palace, also heard Lin Yun's words. However, they were naturally not concerned about Lin Yun, but about Xiao Chun. After looking at each other, Long Qing said, "Don't tell me little brother is also in Immortal Palace?" Early in the morning, Xiao Chun went to visit Cloud Palace Master Lin Yun. Long Qing and Xin Yuan Ling knew about this. However, now that Lin Yun was in Immortal Palace, where was Xiao Chun? Could it be that he was also with Lin Yun? After hearing Long Qing's words, Xin Yuan Ling didn't hesitate too much and said solemnly, "Let's go too." Although they knew that with their strength, they wouldn't be able to change anything even if they went. If Xiao Chun was in Immortal Palace, Long Qing and Xin Yuan Ling naturally wouldn't sit idly by, begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2444. Long Qing and Xin Yuan Ling were worried about Xiao Chen's safety. At the same time, Gu Lingyao, Li Ku, and the other End Realm expert from the Great Thousand Worlds strode into the courtyard. Gu Lingyao shouted, "Is my husband in Immortal Palace now?" Gu Lingyao and the others knew that Xiao Chun had gone to visit Lin Yun. Now that something like this had happened, everyone naturally thought that Xiao Chun should be in Immortal Palace. Hearing Gu Lingyao's words, Xin Yuan Ling said straightforwardly, "Let's go too." Hearing Xin Yuan Ling's words, no one said anything. In a flash, they rushed towards Immortal Palace. Although their cultivations couldn't change anything in front of Immortal Palace and Cloud Palace, Xiao Chun might be in danger. Naturally, they couldn't just stand by and watch. Above Immortal Palace's main hall, experts from Cloud Palace and Immortal Palace kept rushing over. First, a few palace masters of Immortal Palace appeared. Then, Lin Yuan and the other palace masters of Cloud Palace appeared one after another. Above the main hall, the 9 palace masters of Immortal Palace and the 9 palace masters of Cloud Palace stood facing each other. In terms of numbers, Immortal Palace definitely had more people. At this moment, there were disciples of Immortal Palace everywhere. After all, as the only overlord of the Hongmeng world, Immortal Palace claimed to have millions of disciples. It could be said that the people of Cloud Palace were completely surrounded. However, the people of Cloud Palace didn't change their expressions at all. It was as if they didn't realize that they were surrounded. As the number 1 palace master of the 9 palace masters, Lin Yuan naturally wouldn't be surrounded by everyone. At the same time, Lin Yuan also looked at a middle-aged man standing at the front of the 9 palace masters of Immortal Palace. This person was called Gong Nantian. He was the number 1 palace master of Immortal Palace. Like Lin Yuan, he was known as the strongest among the 9 palace masters of Immortal Palace. His strength was second only to Mu Lingxian. It wasn't the first time that he had met Gong Nantian. The two of them had even drunk together and sparred with each other. However, at this moment, Lin Yuan looked at Gong Nantian with a trace of hostility. Although he had a good impression of Gong Nan Tian, and the two of them could be said to be friends who didn't know each other well, with Lin Yuan's character, this was nothing. As long as Lin Yuan wanted to destroy Immortal Palace, Lin Yuan wouldn't even frown. Gong Nan Tian also sensed the change in Lin Yuan. He sighed silently, and then looked at Lin Yuan calmly and said, Lin Yuan, and Lin Yuan's right. Gong Nanshan's meaning was very simple. If Lin Yuan wanted to fight, then let's fight. After all, even a person made of clay had 3 points of fire. Immortal Palace wasn't afraid of Cloud Palace. However, everything still depended on the Palace Master's decision. After all, Lin Yun said that she wanted to destroy Immortal Palace. Mu Lingxian still hadn't responded. Just as Gong Nan Tian was speaking in the hall below, Lin Yun looked indifferently at Mu Lingxian, who was sitting on the main seat. Behind her, Lu Bingning and the other girls all smiled bitterly. It felt like they were saying, see, I knew things would turn out like this. Thinking of this, Lu Bingning transmitted her voice to Xiao Chun. Young Master Xiao, don't get involved in this matter. If a fight breaks out, young Master Xiao can find a chance to leave. Lu Bingning was indeed kind. After all, Xiao Chen's cultivation was useless if he stayed. Moreover, Xiao Chen wasn't a member of Cloud Palace. There was no need for him to get involved. Hearing Lu Bingning's words, Xiao Chun felt helpless. What was going on? Xiao Chun didn't expect Lin Yun's temper to be so overbearing. Weren't they talking nicely just now? Why did she want to destroy them in the next second? Moreover, she didn't seem to be joking at all. Looking at Lin Yun's back, Xiao Chun was a little confused. Lin Yun was indeed too overbearing. However, she had the right to be overbearing. However, this made Xiao Chun suffer. Firstly, Xiao Chun didn't want to offend Cloud Palace. After all, Cloud Palace had treated him well. Moreover, Lin Yun gave him a feeling of familiarity at first sight. She didn't look down on him because of his cultivation. Moreover, Xiao Chun still wanted to stay in Cloud Palace to cultivate for a period of time. Cloud Palace had shown him kindness, and he had a favor to ask of Cloud Palace. No matter how one looked at it, Xiao Chun should stand on Cloud Palace's side. However, there was still a problem that Xiao Chun couldn't ignore. If he wanted to return to the Great Thousand World through the wormhole, he had to get the approval of Mu Lingxian, the World Lord of the Primordial World. Otherwise, Xiao Chun wouldn't be able to return to the Great Thousand World. In this way, Xiao Chun couldn't offend Immortal Palace. For a moment, Xiao Chun cursed helplessly in his heart. What the hell was going on? On one hand, Cloud Palace had shown him kindness. On the other hand, Immortal Palace was related to whether or not he could return to the Great Thousand World. Now, he could only wait and see how Mu Lingxian would respond. Xiao Chun only hoped that Mu Lingxian could calm down a little. Damn it, Immortal Palace and Cloud Palace were both overlords. If they fought, both sides wouldn't suffer losses. He hoped that Mu Lingxian could calm down a little. Calm down, calm down. If they fought, the disadvantages would outweigh the advantages. Mu Lingxian, as the Palace Lord of Immortal Palace, you must think of the bigger picture. You mustn't act on impulse. Xiao Chun thought in his heart. He couldn't help but look at Mu Lingxian. After all, the direction of the situation now depended on Mu Lingxian's response. However, just as Xiao Chen's gaze fell on Mu Lingxian stood up with an ashen face. He looked at Lin Yun with an equally cold gaze and said in an icy tone, "If you want to fight, then let's fight. My Immortal Palace doesn't fear anyone." Damn it. Xiao Chen's expression changed when he heard Mu Lingxian's words. Was this guy brainless? Mu Lingxian actually chose to confront Lin Yun head-on. Xiao Chun was speechless for a moment. He also didn't know what to do. Perhaps Xiao Chun didn't expect that Mu Lingxian could become the world lord of the Hongmeng world and establish a powerful sect like Immortal Palace. How could Mu Lingxian be a person who would swallow humiliation? If Lin Yun's personality was domineering and could be persuaded by reason but not cowed by force, then Mu Lingxian was also such a person. Therefore, when Lin Yun said that she wanted to destroy Immortal Palace, it naturally infuriated Mu Lingxian. Of course, it wasn't only Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian. In fact, Xiao Chun was also such a person. If someone dared to say that they wanted to destroy the sword sect, Xiao Qian wouldn't be able to hold back and would just kill them. However, Xiao Qian didn't have the mood to pay attention to this at all. Right now, Xiao Qian was only thinking about how to resolve the upcoming battle between both sides. However, it was a pity that before Xiao Qian could come up with a solution, Mu Lingxian's voice sounded again. Disciples of Immortal Palace, listen up. Destroy the Cloud Palace. Kill them all for me. Great. Even our palace master is angry. Upon hearing Mu Lingxian's order, Gong Nantian and the other 9 palace masters' eyes flashed with helplessness. However, they immediately looked at Lin Yuan and the other palace masters with unfriendly gazes. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2445. To be able to become the world lord of the universe, Mu Lingxian was naturally no pushover. Facing the overbearing Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian's choice was simple. If she wanted to fight, he would fight. To be able to become the world lord of the universe, Mu Lingxian was naturally no pushover. Facing the overbearing Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian's choice was simple. If she wanted to fight, he would fight. Following Mu Lingxian's words, the battle between the two sides completely erupted. Immediately, Gong Nantian, Lin Yuan, and the other Ancestor Realm experts fought fiercely. At the same time, Lin Yun also took the initiative to attack. She looked at Mu Lingxian with a cold expression and threw out a punch. She said coldly, I want to see how capable Immortal Palace is. Facing Lin Yun's attack, Mu Lingxian did not choose to dodge. Instead, he threw out a punch and collided head-on with Lin Yun's. Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian were both prideful people. Seeing the two of them fighting fiercely, Lu Bingning and the other women felt helpless. However, there was nothing they could do. Moreover, the disciples of Immortal Palace were also fighting fiercely with the people of Cloud Palace. In terms of numbers, Cloud Palace was definitely at a disadvantage. After all, this was the primordial world, their home ground. As for the Cloud Palace's side, they had traveled a long way from the great world to this place, so they obviously couldn't bring all of their disciples with them. As a result, the Cloud Palace only had a few tens of thousands of people, completely incomparable to the Immortal Palace's 1,000,000 disciples. The only thing that had to be said was that Cloud Palace's disciples were all elites. However, Immortal Palace also had such genius disciples. Moreover, they had an overwhelming advantage in terms of numbers. Lu Bingning and the other women naturally had to take action. Otherwise, Cloud Palace's disciples would definitely suffer heavy casualties. Lu Bingning smiled and said to Xiao Qian, Young Master Xiao, find a chance to leave. As soon as she finished speaking, without waiting for Xiao Qian's reply, Lu Bingning and the other women all took action and fought fiercely with Immortal Palace's experts. Looking at the terrifying power that erupted from Lu Bingning and the other women, Xiao Qian was also stunned for a moment. Lin Yun's wives were not simple. Each of their cultivation had actually reached the Ancestor Realm. The entire Immortal Palace had become a battlefield. Both sides were fighting fiercely, especially Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian. The two of them were fighting fiercely. At this moment, Lin Yun was holding a long spear, while Mu Lingxian was holding a Vajra rod. The two of them could be said to be equally matched, and the might that surpassed the progenitor realm was fully unleashed. This was the first time he had seen the strength of a world lord. Even Xiao Qian could not see their movements clearly. He could only see that the space where the two were fighting had completely collapsed, and the aftermath of the battle was constantly spreading out. An Ancestor Realm expert was already in existence that surpassed an Emperor Realm expert, and a world lord like Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian was in existence that surpassed an Ancestor Realm expert. In any universe, there was a limit to the laws of heaven and earth. That was, only one world lord could be born. Moreover, a universe that could give birth to a world lord must have a complete set of laws of heaven and earth without the slightest flaw. Otherwise, it would be impossible to become a world lord. Every world lord could be said to be an existence that stood above all living beings. Naturally, their strength could be imagined. In any case, Xiao Qian could not see the movements of Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian at all, let alone intervene. As the battle continued, Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian's aura also continued to rise. Clearly, they were also fighting fiercely. Mu Lingxian's body was surrounded by countless immortal qi, while Lin Yun's battle aura was soaring to the sky, causing people to involuntarily feel a chill. A spear pierced out like a dragon, and a huge golden dragon went straight for Mu Lingxian. Seeing this, Mu Lingxian also slammed the Vajra staff in his hand down, ruthlessly hitting the golden dragon's head. For Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian, techniques such as absolute command and spatial movement were already very simple techniques. After successfully blocking Lin Yun's attack, Mu Lingxian pointed out his finger and softly shouted, "All-round thunder prison." As soon as his voice fell, the sky above the immortal palace was suddenly filled with dark clouds. Then, bolts of heavenly thunder fell from the sky and went straight for Xiao Qian. With a single word, the laws of heaven and earth had to listen to my command. Facing the bombardment of countless heavenly thunder, Lin Yun had no intention of dodging at all. She allowed the heavenly thunder to continuously bombard her body, but Lin Yun was not injured at all. It was obviously impossible for a mere heavenly thunder to injure a world lord. Moreover, Lin Yun's body was obviously extremely strong and flawless like jade. She was not afraid of the heavenly thunder at all. Lin Yun didn't dodge and allowed the lightning to strike him. He looked at Mu Lingxian indifferently and sneered. "Mu Lingxian, have you had enough of these boring tricks? You, Lin Yun, don't push people too far." Hearing this, Mu Lingxian angrily shouted, "I'm pushing people too far? Mu Lingxian, you want me to enter the immortal demon road of your immortal palace alone? Who is pushing people too far? Your son kill my prince. If he doesn't enter the immortal demon road, this matter is not over." In the face of Lin Yun's tyranny, Mu Lingxian did not give in. Today, if Lin Feng did not enter the immortal demon road, Mu Lingxian obviously would not give up. Hearing this, Lin Yun did not say anything more. She shook fiercely, and the heavenly thunder around her was directly shattered. At the same time, Lin Yun's body emitted the sound of a dragon. Then, in the 100,000 li of the sky where Lin Yun stretched out her hand, there were countless real dragon shadows. Countless golden dragons gathered behind Lin Yun. At this moment, Lin Yun was simply worshipping 10,000 dragons. When such a vision appeared, not to mention the people present, the warriors of the entire Hongmeng world were greatly shocked. Everywhere in the Hongmeng world, whether they had cultivation or not, everyone heard the roar of the king dragon. These dragon roars resounded through the world, causing all living beings to tremble in fear. Moreover, the primordial world's heavenly Tao laws also became berserk at this moment, as if they couldn't bear Lin Yun's might. Countless golden dragons entrenched behind Lin Yun, each of them opening their bloody mouths as if to swallow Mu Lingxian alive. Long Qing, who was rushing to the immortal palace, naturally saw this scene. Looking at the countless golden dragons in the sky, Long Qing said in disbelief, "How is this possible?" As a member of the dragon clan, Long Qing was naturally very sensitive to the aura of the dragon clan. From the countless golden dragons, Long Qing could feel the strong pressure of the ancestral dragon. In other words, the vision that erupted from Lin Yun, the countless golden dragons, each of them had the bloodline of the ancestral dragon. What kind of joke was this? One had to know that in the Great Thousand World, apart from the dead Long Yuan, only Long Qing had the bloodline of the ancestral dragon. Now, the countless golden dragons behind Lin Yun actually contained the bloodline of the ancestral dragon. What kind of means was this? Surrounded by 10,000 dragons, Mu Lingxian looked at Lin Yun in front of him, and his expression became more and more unsightly. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 2446. The countless golden dragons in the sky were naturally not real, but a vision caused by Lin Yun. The appearance of this vision also proved that Lin Yun was serious. Mu Lingxian looked at Lin Yun with an ugly expression. The anger in his heart continued to rise. Looking at Lin Yun's appearance, it was obvious that she wanted to fight to the death with him. Mu Lingxian said angrily, "All right, Lin Yun, if you want to fight, I'll accompany you to the end." As he spoke, Mu Lingxian's aura suddenly surged. In an instant, the mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. Rivers and seas roared. Behind Mu Lingxian, a vision was also born. A gorgeous rainbow light made the sky look magnificent. Without saying much, the two of them attacked at the same time. Lin Yun held a long sword in her hand, and countless golden dragons followed behind her. On the other hand, Mu Lingxian's divine aura was overwhelming. The rainbow light seemed to cover the sky and earth. Hey, are you serious? If this continues, this continent will be destroyed. Gong Nantian, who was fighting fiercely with Lin Yuan, was completely helpless when he saw Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian's actions. He could tell that his palace master and Lin Yun were completely serious. It was too easy for the battle between two world masters to destroy a continent. Not to mention a continent, the entire Hongmeng world would be severely damaged after this battle. Gong Nantian looked at Lin Yuan, who was fighting fiercely with him, and said helplessly, "Are you serious?" Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian's attacks were no longer a joke. Both of them were going all out. The situation seemed to be a little out of control. However, Lin Yuan had no intention of replying to Gong Nantian's words. In Lin Yuan's opinion, he would do whatever his elder brother said. As for the Hongmeng world, Lin Yuan was not in the mood to care. Seeing that Lin Yuan was completely unmoved, Gong Nantian was completely helpless. Why were the people of Yun Palace a bunch of stubborn people? Gong Nantian didn't seem to be willing to continue fighting. He had been like this from the beginning. This didn't mean that Gong Nantian was weaker than Lin Yuan. On the contrary, Gong Nantian was very strong. He had already reached the peak of the ancestor realm and could be said to be on par with Lin Yuan. Gong Nantian was unwilling to continue fighting purely because he felt that it was troublesome. Moreover, it was meaningless. The people of Yin Palace was a bunch of stubborn people. His palace master was completely furious and did not care about the consequences. Gong Nantian could only helplessly deal with Lin Yuan's attacks. Gong Nantian was obviously complaining about Mu Lingxian. After all, compared to a prince, the Yun Palace was definitely more important. However, Gong Nantian also knew that Mu Lingxian was not angry because of the palace master. She was angry because of her own face. Lin Yun's domineering behavior made Mu Lingxian feel that she had lost her face. Therefore, Mu Lingxian was completely furious. Now that things had developed to this point, it did not have much to do with the dead palace master. If anything, it was just a fuse. Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian continued to fight fiercely. The continent where Immortal Palace was located also became precarious as the two of them fought fiercely. In the sky, spatial cracks were brutally torn open. These spatial cracks were torn open by the shockwaves of Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian's battle. At the same time, the Earth annihilation was also shaking. Huge cracks began to appear. If this continued, just as Gong Nantian said, the continent would not be able to hold on for long. Looking at the fierce battle between Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian, Xiao Chun was also helpless. However, he could not interfere at all. What a joke. With Xiao Chun's current strength, he probably would not be able to block even a single shockwave. Just as Xiao Chun was helplessly looking at Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian, Long Qing, Xin Yuan Ling, Gu Ling Yao, and the others finally arrived. They immediately came to Xiao Chun's side. Seeing that everyone had arrived, Xiao Chun was stunned. He then looked at Gu Ling Yao and the other two and said, "Why are you all here? We're worried about you." Gu Ling Yao said coquettishly. Now that there were experts from Immortal Palace and Cloud Palace fighting fiercely, it was naturally very dangerous. The arrival of Gu Ling Yao and the other two inevitably made Xiao Chun worried. However, before Xiao Chun could speak, Xin Yuan Ling said, "What do we do now? Do we leave, or?" Now, the best way was naturally to leave. After all, It was meaningless for Xiao Chun and the others to join, let alone gain any benefits. However, after hearing Xian Yuanling's words, Xiao Chun smiled bitterly. Leave? If he could leave, he would have left long ago. Why would he wait until now? Xiao Chun felt that Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian were simply joking. They fought as they pleased. Moreover, from the looks of it, the two of them would not stop until there was a winner today. It was obviously not a good idea to continue like this. Moreover, Xiao Chun already felt that the continent under his feet was beginning to show signs of collapse. If they continued to fight like this, the continent would really not be able to hold on. Just as Xiao Chun was thinking about how to deal with it, Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian's attacks became more and more violent. Between their movements, there was a power that could destroy heaven and earth. With a punch, it was no longer a matter of heaven and earth collapsing. It was a matter of destroying heaven and earth. However, even so, the two of them still had no intention of stopping. On the contrary, their auras continued to rise. It was as if they would not stop until one of them was dead. After the two of them collided head-on, they were forced to retreat a few steps. Just as the two of them were about to continue fighting, an old man suddenly appeared on the scene and shouted at the two of them. Wait! The person who came was Tenzu from the primordial world. Although his cultivation was not as good as Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun's, Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun subconsciously stopped what they were doing when they heard this. In terms of strength, Tenzu naturally could not be compared to a world lord. However, Tenzu's existence was very special. Without Tenzu, a universe would not be able to operate normally. Therefore, Mu Lingxian still gave face to Tenzu. Seeing that the two of them had stopped what they were doing, Tenzu looked at Mu Lingxian and said helplessly with a bitter smile, Hall Master, what are you doing? Are you trying to destroy the primordial world? If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If Lin Yun wants to fight, I'll accompany him. Hearing this, Mu Lingxian snorted coldly. Obviously, the anger in his heart had not dissipated at all. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2447. The fierce battle between Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian had reached its climax. In just a short period of time, the continent where Immortal Palace was located was already on the verge of collapse. Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian's fierce battle had reached its climax. In just a short period of time, the continent where Immortal Palace was located was already on the verge of collapse. The rivers flowed backward, the sky fell, and the earth cracked. This was the result of a few moves between Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian. If the battle dragged on a little longer, the continent would probably not be able to hold on. It wasn't just this continent. If the two continents weren't stopped, the entire Hongmeng world would probably be severely damaged. After all, a battle between world lords was equivalent to a major earthquake for any universe. Tenzu from the Hongmeng world had no choice but to show up. If he didn't show up, the Hongmeng world would really be destroyed by these two people. The Heavenly Ancestor was well aware of Mu Lingxian's personality. When he saw that Mu Lingxian was still angry, the Heavenly Ancestor smiled bitterly and turned to Lin Yun. Greetings, Lord Lin. I hope Lord Lin will not take action again. Lin Yun was the world lord of the Hongmeng world, so Tenzu also addressed Lin Yun as Lord Lin. Tenzu was very familiar with Mu Lingxian, but Tenzu was unfamiliar with Lin Yun. After all, Lin Yun wasn't from the Hongmeng world. Moreover, after Lin Yun came to the Hongmeng world, Tenzu had only seen Lin Yun once. As for Lin Yun, she obviously didn't have much interest in Tenzu. Although Tenzu was the will of the entire Hongmeng world and represented the heavenly Tao, so what? People like Lin Yun had already transcended the heavenly Tao and didn't fear Tenzu at all. Moreover, although Tenzu from the Hongmeng world was stronger than Tenzu from the Great Thousand world, he was only comparable to the Ancestor realm. Lin Yun really didn't care about this little strength. Therefore, Lin Yun didn't have much interest in Tenzu from the Hongmeng world. In the entire Hongmeng world, the only person Lin Yun was interested in was Mu Lingxian. At this time, Hearing Tenzu's words, Lin Yun said indifferently, I can stop, but I'm afraid that some people won't. After saying that, Lin Yun glanced at Mu Lingxian indifferently. Mu Lingxian naturally couldn't endure such a glare. He immediately snorted coldly. Oomph. Let your son, Lin Feng, enter the immortal demon road, and I will let bygones be bygones. As Gongnan Tian said, Mu Lingxian was a person who cared about face. Previously, he wanted Lin Feng to enter the immortal demon road, and now, Mu Lingxian still insisted on letting Lin Feng enter the immortal demon road. Hearing Mu Lingxian's words, everyone knew that it was obviously impossible to let Lin Feng enter the immortal demon road. Not to mention other things, Lin Yun would definitely be the first to disagree. As expected, Lin Yun's eyes flashed coldly, and she said coldly, Then let's continue. Having said that, Lin Yun was about to attack again. Seeing this, Mu Lingxian refused to budge an inch. The heavenly ancestor felt bitter in his heart, but he had no choice but to stop them. Master Lin, please wait. He absolutely couldn't let these two guys attack again. Otherwise, the Hongmeng world would really be destroyed. However, this time, perhaps because of Mu Lingxian, Lin Yun didn't give Tenzu any face. She glanced at him indifferently. Lin Yun said indifferently, This has nothing to do with you. Piss off. Otherwise, if I accidentally kill you, don't blame me. Lin Yun was originally from the Hongmeng world. Naturally, she didn't need to give face to Tenzu. Hearing this, Mu Lingxian was even more furious. He was about to attack, but at that moment, a voice interrupted their battle. Master, as long as someone from Yun Palace enters the immortal demon road, will this matter be resolved? The sudden voice stunned Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun. They looked at the source of the voice and saw Xiao Chun, who was dressed in white, looking at them calmly. The previous sentence obviously came from Xiao Chun. Looking at Xiao Chun, Mu Lingxian asked indifferently, What? Do you plan to enter the immortal demon road on behalf of Lin Feng? That's right. Hearing this, Xiao Chun didn't hide his thoughts and nodded very straightforwardly. Xiao Chun had no choice. Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian didn't want to give in. At this time, someone had to come out and give the two of them a way out. No one from Immortal Palace and Yun Palace was willing to come out and smooth things over. The Hongmeng world, Tenzu and Lin Yun didn't seem to be interested. Therefore, the most suitable person on the scene was naturally Xiao Chun. After all, Xiao Chun and Yun Palace were old friends and knew each other. Secondly, Xiao Chun didn't offend Immortal Palace. Xiao Chun was the most suitable person to say these words. However, as soon as Mu Lingxian's voice fell, Lin Yun said coldly, Xiao Chun, don't make trouble. This has nothing to do with you. Take your people and leave. Lin Yun obviously didn't want Xiao Chun to meddle in other people's business. However, Xiao Chun didn't pay attention to this, but he cursed helplessly in his heart. You think I want to meddle? You two great gods are fighting happily, but if the Hongmeng world is destroyed by you, how can I return to the Great Thousand World? In order to return to the Great Thousand World, Xiao Chun naturally couldn't let the two continue to fight. While thinking, Xiao Chun slowly rose into the air and came in front of Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun. This was the first time Xiao Chun faced the two world leaders, Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian. In the eyes of others, Xiao Chun seemed to be standing on the same level as Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian. For the first time, the three of them gave people the feeling that they were on equal footing. Of course, this was just an illusion. After all, with Xiao Chun's current strength, it was impossible for him to be on equal footing with Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian. When Lin Yun became the world leader of the Great Thousand World, it was possible. However, Xiao Chun obviously didn't have time to pay attention to this now. He looked at Mu Lingxian. Xiao Chun took the initiative to bow and salute. Senior, I am willing to take Lin Feng's place to enter the Celestial Demon Road. Xiao Chun was willing to take Lin Feng's place, which was enough to give Mu Lingxian face. Tenzu also looked at Mu Lingxian from the Hongmeng world and transmitted his voice to him. Palace leader, that's enough. Do you really want to destroy the entire Hongmeng world? Xiao Chen's words undoubtedly gave Mu Lingxian a way out. Tenzu also wanted Mu Lingxian to quickly climb down the pole and stop fighting with Lin Yun. It was meaningless, and the Hongmeng world couldn't withstand the two of them. As for the result of Xiao Chun entering the Celestial Demon Road, Tenzu didn't care. How could he care so much now? As long as he could calm the battle between Mu Lingxian and Lin Yun, everything else could be put aside for the time being. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2448. Xiao Qin's appearance gave Mu Lingxian a way out, but Lin Yun disagreed. Lin Yun looked at Xiao Chun and scolded him helplessly. Xiao Qin's appearance gave Mu Lingxian a way out, but Lin Yun disagreed. Lin Yun looked at Xiao Chun and scolded him helplessly. Xiao Chun, you're crazy. This is not a joke. Stand aside and don't meddle in other people's business. Lin Yun had also heard about the Immortal Demon Road. She knew that it was a forbidden area of Immortal Palace. It was said that the Immortal Demon Road used to be a secret place with many opportunities. However, compared to those opportunities, the Immortal Demon Road was more dangerous. Therefore, over time, the Immortal Demon Road became a forbidden area of Immortal Palace. It was specially provided for those disciples who violated the rules of Immortal Palace to redress their grievances. Therefore, as long as one could come out of the Immortal Demon Road alive, all the previous mistakes could be forgotten. However, how could it be so easy to walk out of the Immortal Demon Road? Not to mention that Xiao Chun was only a half-step Sovereign Master. Even if a real Sovereign Master entered it, it would still be extremely dangerous. Lin Yun motioned for Xiao Chun to step down, but Xiao Chun did not listen. Instead, he smiled at Lin Yun. Palace Master, I've already thought about it. I will replace Lin Feng to enter the Immortal Demon Road. I hope Palace Master can help me. Compared to Mu Lingxian, Xiao Chun's attitude towards Lin Yun was obviously more intimate. After all, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had contact before. Therefore, Xiao Chun called Mu Lingxian Sr. and Lin Yun Palace Master. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, Lin Yun was stunned. She couldn't help but feel grateful. From the exchange of blows just now, Mu Lingxian's reputation as the world lord of the Hongmeng world was not undeserved. Lin Yun was not completely confident that she could defeat him. After all, they were both world lords. It would be strange if Mu Lingxian was too weak. If they continued to fight, both sides would suffer. Xiao Chun stood up at this time, obviously giving both sides a way out. Besides, Xiao Chun was willing to enter the Celestial Demon Road on behalf of Lin Feng. This in itself was enough to make Lin Yun feel grateful. After all, Lin Feng was her only son. However, with Lin Yun's personality, she naturally would not watch Xiao Chun fall into danger. Moreover, this matter had nothing to do with Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun was not a member of her Yun Palace. She was grateful, but Lin Yun did not agree with Xiao Chun entering the Celestial Demon Road. In this regard, Xiao Chun was also extremely helpless. Of course, I don't want to enter the Celestial Demon Road, but what can I do? I can only watch you fight and then destroy the Hongmeng world. At that time, I won't be able to go back to the Great Thousand World. In order to protect the way back to the Great Thousand World, Xiao Chun was really going all out. Therefore, no matter how Lin Yun opposed, Xiao Chun had always insisted that he was willing to enter the Celestial Demon Road. He only hoped that Lin Yun and Mu Lingxian could stop. In the face of Xiao Chun's insistence, Lin Yun fell into silence for a while. On the other side, Mu Lingxian was obviously persuaded by Tenzu at this time. Like Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian was not sure that he could defeat Lin Yun. Although the previous fight between the two was very short, and both of them had not used their trump cards, even so, Mu Lingxian did not feel that he could win. From Mu Lingxian's point of view, continuing to fight would only result in a lose-lose situation for both sides. Now that Xiao Chun had taken the initiative to help him out, just as the Sky Ancestor had said, Xiao Chun was giving him a way out. Mu Lingxian looked at Xiao Chun with a trace of curiosity and asked faintly, "You are Xiao Chun, right? You are from the Great Thousand World?" Hearing Mu Lingxian's words, Xiao Chun nodded and replied, "Yes." Mu Lingxian did not know much about the Great Thousand World. Seeing Xiao Chun nod, Mu Lingxian paused and continued, Do you know the dangers of the Celestial Demon Road? Are you sure you want to enter the Celestial Demon Road on behalf of Lin Feng? I am sure. Hearing this, Xiao Chen nodded and replied without thinking. Wasn't this nonsense? Xiao Chen did know the dangers of the Celestial Demon Road, but what else could he do? Anyway, Xiao Chen could see that Mu Lingxian was definitely going to ask for an explanation today, and it was not a perfunctory one. Seeing Xiao Chen nod directly, Mu Lingxian was a little surprised, but he quickly nodded and said, "All right then. In that case, let's forget about this matter. As long as you enter the Celestial Demon Road, regardless of whether you live or die, I will not pursue this matter. Moreover, if you can come out of the Celestial Demon Road alive, I will give you an opportunity." Xiao Chen's performance had indeed interested Mu Lingxian. Although Mu Lingxian looked young, in terms of age, he was definitely much older than Xiao Chen. He was probably comparable to Jun Wuya. Therefore, in Mu Lingxian's eyes, Xiao Chen was indeed a junior, and a junior that he was very interested in. He came from an unknown universe, the Great Thousand World, and his cultivation was only at the half-step Emperor realm. However, at this time, he had the courage to stand up. Moreover, in front of him and Lin Yun, the two world lords, Xiao Chen's performance had always been neither servile nor overbearing. To be able to do this was indeed impressive. Mu Lingxian had a good impression of Xiao Chen. As for Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian glanced at him and ignored him. He said coldly, "Look at the Celestial Demon Road tomorrow." After that, Mu Lingxian looked at Xiao Chen and said indifferently, "Take care of yourself." As his voice fell, the matter seemed to have come to an end, but all of a sudden, all the important things were on Xiao Chen's head. Entering the Celestial Demon Road, Xiao Chen was certainly not seeking death. Now that Mu Lingxian had agreed that he would enter the Celestial Demon Road on behalf of Lin Feng, and no longer pursue the previous matters, Xiao Chen should consider how to come out of the Celestial Demon Road alive. There was no intention to restrict Xiao Chen's freedom, and Mu Lingxian was not worried that Xiao Chen would escape. In the Hongming world, even if Xiao Chen ran to the ends of the earth, Mu Lingxian had a way to catch him back. Lin Yun looked at Xiao Chen in front of him and said helplessly, "Why do you have to go so far? Why are you doing this? You should have heard of the dangers of the Immortal Demon Road." "I have no choice. I have to go back to the Great World. I can't watch the two seniors destroy the Hongming world." Hearing this, Xiao Chen said with a smile. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Lin Yun was stunned. At the same time, Lu Bingning and the other women, Lin Feng, Lin Shui, Gu Lingyao, Long Qing, Xin Yuanling, and the others also came over. As soon as they came up, Lin Feng spoke first. "I don't need you to replace me. It's just the Celestial Demon Road. I'll go by myself." Lin Feng's character was obviously very arrogant. However, he didn't give Xiao Chen a reply at all. Gu Lingyao on the side had already angrily pinched Xiao Chen's waist and shouted, "Are you crazy? Do you know what the Celestial Demon Road is? How dare you go? Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." Chapter 2449. Xiao Chen actually took the initiative to ask to enter the Immortal Demon Road, which made Gu Lingyao and the other two girls very worried. In this regard, Xiao Chen also smiled and said to the three girls, "Let's talk about it when we get back." Xiao Chen actually took the initiative to ask to enter the Immortal Demon Road, which made Gu Lingyao and the other two girls very worried. In this regard, Xiao Chen also smiled and said to the three girls, "Let's talk about it when we get back." The conflict between the two sides was temporarily settled, but all of this was based on the premise that Xiao Chen was willing to replace Lin Feng and enter the Immortal Demon Road. Xiao Chen took the initiative to stand up, which could be regarded as giving Mu Lingxian a way out. They didn't stay in Immortal Palace for too long. Xiao Chen followed the group of people from Yun Palace and quickly returned to Yun Palace. Mu Lingxian wasn't worried that Xiao Chen would run away. In any case, according to the agreement, Xiao Chen would confidently go to Immortal Palace tomorrow morning and enter the Immortal Demon Road. After returning to Yun Palace's palace, Lin Yun took the initiative to say to Xiao Chen, "Come with me." Lin Yun took the initiative to call Xiao Chen. Hearing this, Xiao Chen didn't refuse. He just said to Gu Ling Yao and the other two girls, "You go back first and wait for me." Humph. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gu Ling Yao tenderly snorted. Obviously, the anger in her heart hadn't subsided. The reason why Gu Ling Yao was angry was entirely because Xiao Chun actually asked to enter the Immortal Demon Road. She was worried about Xiao Chen's safety. In Gu Ling Yao's eyes, even if Yun Palace and Immortal Palace both suffered losses, it didn't matter. Anyway, as long as Xiao Chun was fine, it was fine. However, Xiao Chun, this idiot, actually took the initiative to enter the Immortal Demon Road. This really made Gu Ling Yao very angry. Looking at Gu Ling Yao's unhappy expression and her mouth high, it felt like she was saying, "I'm very unhappy right now." In this regard, Xiao Chun could only helplessly smile. On the other hand, Lu Bingning, Lan Shi, and the other girls also took the initiative to chat with Gu Ling Yao and the other two girls. Lu Bingning and the other girls took the initiative to interact with Gu Ling Yao and the others. Soon, the girls started chatting while Xiao Chun and Lin Yun left together. Once again, they returned to Lin Yun's residence. It was still the same simple thatch cottage. The two of them sat opposite each other. Lin Yun looked at Xiao Chun with a different look in her eyes. Xiao Chen's actions indeed surprised Lin Yun. After all, the dangers of the Immortal Demon Road were not just words. Looking at Xiao Chun, Lin Yun gradually revealed a smile. "Do you know the dangers of the Immortal Demon Road? If you go in, it's almost certain death." Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded and said, "I've heard a little about it, but there's no other way. I can't just watch the two of you fight to the death." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Lin Yun's eyes narrowed slightly, as if she wanted to see through Xiao Chun. After a long while, Lin Yun chuckled and said, "Are you afraid that you can't return to the Great Thousand World?" Lin Yun's words exposed Xiao Chen's thoughts. He was unwilling to watch the Cloud Palace and the Immortal Palace fight to the death. The biggest reason was that he was worried that he could not return to the Great Thousand World. After all, whether Xiao Chun could return to the Great Thousand World or not depended on Mu Lingxian. After all, Mu Lingxian was the world master of the primordial world. If he did not agree, Xiao Chun could not return to the Great Thousand World through the wormhole. Hearing Lin Yun's words, Xiao Chun did not hide it and simply nodded and admitted, "Yes, there is indeed such a reason." Speaking of this, Xiao Chun paused for a moment, then continued. "As for the dangers, from the day we martial artists were able to embark on the path of cultivation, we were already accompanied by danger. Moreover, isn't there still a slim chance of survival on the Immortal Demon Road?" "Ha, well said." Lin Yun laughed loudly. After chatting with Xiao Chun for a while, Lin Yun had a better impression of Xiao Chun. Although Xiao Chun's cultivation was still very low, Lin Yun could foresee that in the future, Xiao Chun would definitely stand at the peak. Moreover, the Great Thousand World did not have a world master yet. In Lin Yun's opinion, Xiao Chun had the potential to become a world master. After chatting for a while, Xiao Chun also found an opportunity to express his objection to Lin Yun. "Palace Master, as a matter of fact, I have a favor to ask of you." That day, I met Palace Master Qin Feng, and after his advice, I thought of staying in the Cloud Palace to cultivate. After all, compared to the vast Thousand World, the Cloud Palace is indeed much stronger. Xiao Chun expressed his intention of staying in the Cloud Palace to cultivate for a period of time. After finishing his sentence, Xiao Chun looked at Lin Yun with glinting eyes, not knowing how exactly Lin Yun would answer him. After all, if he were to stay in the Cloud Palace, he would definitely need to use the cultivation resources of the Cloud Palace. Xiao Chun wasn't sure if Lin Yun would be willing to let an outsider like him use the cultivation resources. Besides, even if Lin Yun rejected Xiao Chun's request, he wouldn't be surprised. Hearing that Xiao Chun wanted to stay in the Cloud Palace to cultivate for a period of time, Lin Yun wasn't surprised and just said with a smile, "Everything will wait until you come out of the Immortal Demon Road. Since you've already spoken, you have to go through the Immortal Demon Road." Lin Yun didn't agree or refuse, but from Lin Yun's words, it wasn't difficult for Xiao Chun to understand that Lin Yun had already agreed, but it was because of the Immortal Demon Road. In front of so many people, Xiao Chun took the initiative to say that he was willing to enter the Immortal Demon Road on behalf of Lin Feng. Now that things had come to this, Xiao Chun definitely couldn't escape and had to enter the Immortal Demon Road. After entering the Immortal Demon Road, it was uncertain whether Xiao Chun could come out alive. Therefore, Lin Yun's meaning was obvious. If he came out alive, everything would be fine, but if he was in the Immortal Demon Road, then he couldn't blame anyone. Junior understands. Hearing this, Xiao Chun nodded. Seeing this, the smile on Lin Yun's face did not diminish. Don't be too nervous. Although the Immortal Demon Road is dangerous, it is also said that it contains a lot of opportunities, and some of them are big enough to make people crazy. Moreover, this time you chose to go through the Immortal Demon Road for my Cloud Palace. Naturally, I won't sit idly by. You can keep these things. With these things, your chances of going through the Immortal Demon Road will be greatly increased. As she spoke, Lin Yun threw a storage ring to Xiao Chun, which contained a lot of magic weapons and medicinal pills. As Lin Yun said, with these things, Xiao Chun's chances of success were indeed greatly increased. This was because the quality of the things given by Lin Yun was absolutely superior to the vast thousand world. In particular, Lin Yun also gave Xiao Chun a natal spirit tablet. This natal spirit tablet was personally made by Lin Yun. It could exert the power of Lin Yun's full blow. Although it could only be used once, it was absolutely precious and priceless. After all, who was Lin Yun? She was the world lord of a universe. Without these things, Xiao Chun would have a slim chance of survival if he went to the Immortal Demon Road. However, with these things given by Lin Yun, Xiao Chun's chances of survival in the Immortal Demon Road were 50-50. There was an average chance that he could come out alive, and such a chance was already extremely heaven-defying. Without being pretentious, Xiao Chun simply accepted the storage ring thrown to him by Lin Yun. He then cupped his hands and bowed. Junior thanks Palace Master. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 2450. Xiao Chun wasn't pretentious or hypocritical. He simply accepted the storage ring that Lin Yun threw over. Xiao Chun was very clear about the dangers of the Immortal Demon Road. Since Lin Yun was willing to help him, it was naturally for the best. Xiao Chun wasn't pretentious or hypocritical. He simply accepted the storage ring that Lin Yun threw over. Xiao Chun was very clear about the dangers of the Immortal Demon Road. Since Lin Yun was willing to help him, it was naturally for the best. Seeing Xiao Chun accept the storage ring so easily, Lin Yun smiled with satisfaction. After chatting for a while, Xiao Chun took the initiative to say goodbye. Xiao Chun also nodded in agreement. Go. I want to accompany you tomorrow. I don't want to beat up Mu Lingxian when I see him. Be careful. Hearing Lin Yun's words, Xiao Chun smiled helplessly. Her temper was really overbearing. Mu Lingxian was the world lord of the Hongmeng world, but in Lin Yun's words, he seemed to be someone who could be beaten up as she wished. He left with a bitter smile and returned to his residence. When they saw that Xiao Chun had returned, Gu Lingyao and the other two women who were talking to Lu Bingning and the others immediately stood up to greet him. Seeing that the three women's complexions had improved, Xiao Chun bowed and smiled secretly. It seemed that Lu Bingning and the others had indeed enlightened them. The three women surrounded Xiao Chun. Seeing this, Lu Bingning and the others also stood up and said to Xiao Chun with a smile, "Since you're back, we should also leave. Do your best tomorrow and be careful." After speaking, Lu Bingning and the others directly left. Gu Lingyao and the other two women personally stood up to send them off and sweetly called out, "Sister Bingning, take care." They had already addressed each other as sisters. Xiao Chun didn't care much about this. After all, Lu Bingning, Lan Shi, and the other girls were Lin Yun's wives. Xiao Chun was happy to see Gu Lingyao and the other girls getting along well with Lu Bingning and the other girls. However, after Lu Bingning and the other girls left, it was time for Xiao Chun to suffer. After seeing Lu Bingning and the other girls off, Gu Lingyao and the other two girls pulled Xiao Chun to the pavilion in the courtyard and sat down. Gu Lingyao was the first to speak. "Husband, You really don't let us be at ease. Do you know how dangerous the immortal devil road is? How can you make such a decision on your own? That's right. What should we do if anything happens to you? Hong Xiu chimed in when she heard this. After being surrounded by the three women and being criticized for a long time, Xiao Chun was speechless. However, he also knew that the three women were worried about him. In the end, he could only smile and comfort them. Don't worry, there won't be any problems this time. Palace Master Lin Yun gave me a lot of life-saving things that have never been seen before in the Great Thousand World. They are very strong, so there won't be any problems in protecting my life. After hearing Xiao Qin's words, Gu Lingyao and the other two women were slightly relieved. They also knew about Lin Yun's strength. This was a task on the same level as Mu Lingxian. Since Lin Yun intended to protect Xiao Qin's life, then there shouldn't be any problems. Seeing that the three women's expressions had eased, Xiao Chun struck while the iron was hot and said, "Moreover, I'm doing this so that I can return to the Great Thousand World in the future. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing." Under Xiao Qin's comfort and repeated assurances, the three women didn't say anything more. The night was silent. This night, Xiao Chun wasn't too simple. In fact, the life-saving things in the storage ring that Lin Yun gave Xiao Chun were enough to let Lin Yun safely leave the immortal demon road. As long as Lin Yun didn't seek death, it was basically enough to deal with any danger in the immortal demon road. After all, although the immortal demon road was dangerous, it was still a little lacking for a world lord like Lin Yun. As a world lord, in this world, it wasn't that there weren't many things that could threaten Lin Yun. Many places that were regarded as places of death by the world were not dangerous in Lin Yun's eyes. For example, the Immortal Demon Road. Early the next morning, Xiao Qin prepared to go to the Immortal Palace and enter the Immortal Demon Road. Long Qing, Xin Yuan Ling, and Gu Lingyao said that they wanted to go with Xiao Qin no matter what. Unable to endure the crowd, Xiao Chun finally nodded in agreement. At the same time, the monk and Taoist also came to Xiao Qin's residence, and the group set off for the Immortal Palace. Because of the battle yesterday, more than half of the Immortal Palace was destroyed, but this morning, the Immortal Palace was restored to its original state. In this regard, Xiao Chun and the others were very puzzled. This was a little too fast. Even if it was to recultivate, it couldn't be done in one night. Looking at the perfect Immortal Palace, Xiao Chun and the others were surprised. The monk at the side explained in a timely manner. This immortal palace is shrouded in a formation. Just like a person, any damage can be healed in the shortest time. You mean this immortal palace can recover automatically? Then these buildings? That's right. These buildings heal by themselves, just like a person's wound. He had never heard of a formation that could heal by itself. Xiao Qin had never heard of such a formation. With a shocked mood, the group quickly arrived at the entrance of the Immortal Demon Road. At this time, there was already an elder of the Immortal Palace waiting here. He specially opened the Immortal Demon Road for Xiao Chun. Without wasting any time, when he saw Xiao Chun and the others coming, the elder directly opened the entrance of the Immortal Demon Road. Then he said to Xiao Chun indifferently, "The Palace Master has already said that as long as you enter the Immortal Demon Road, no matter what the result is, the previous matter will be written off. Go in." Looking at the entrance of the Immortal Demon Road in front of him, Xiao Chun was about to step forward, but at this moment, Gong Nantian suddenly appeared and shouted, "Wait!" Upon hearing Gong Nantian's words, Xiao Chun came to a halt and looked at Gong Nantian suspiciously. Xiao Chun had seen Gong Nantian before, but he wasn't familiar with him. He only knew that Gong Nantian was one of the 9 palace masters of the Immortal Palace and was also an ancestral powerhouse. Seeing Xiao Chun looking at him suspiciously, Gong Nantian directly threw a token to Xiao Chun. Seeing this, Xiao Chun didn't know what this token was. On the other hand, the elder's expression changed and he said helplessly, "Palace Master, isn't this a little against the rules? This token should be something very important. Otherwise, the elder wouldn't have such a big reaction." But in this regard, Gong Nantian waved his hand indifferently and said, "What's against the rules? Just pretend you didn't see it." If there's any problem, just let Tian come to me. I will talk to him. After his voice fell, Gong Nantian turned to look at Xiao Chun and a smile appeared on his face. Boy, I'm very optimistic about you. Take this token. With this token, you won't be in any danger in the immortal demon road. Maybe you can even have a good harvest. Okay, don't just stand there. Quickly go in. With this token, he wouldn't be in any danger in the immortal demon road. Hearing this, Xiao Chun looked at the token in his hand and felt a little suspicious. He thought to himself, is this token so awesome? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2451. A token could allow him to run amok in the immortal demon road? Hearing Gong Nanshan's words, Xiao Chun suspiciously looked at the token in his hand, then raised his head to look at Gong Nantian. His eyes seemed to say, I don't believe you. A token could allow him to run amok in the immortal demon road? Hearing Gong Nanshan's words, Xiao Chun suspiciously looked at the token in his hand, then raised his head to look at Gong Nantian. His eyes seemed to say, I don't believe you. Indeed, even the storage ring Lin Yun gave him, which contained many life-saving treasures, didn't dare to say that it could allow him to run amok in the immortal demon road. As for Nangong Wan, in terms of strength, she definitely couldn't compare to Lin Yun. She was only in the ancestor realm. However, he had thrown a command medallion to Xiao Chun, saying that with this medallion, he would be able to run amok on the immortal demon road. How could Xiao Chun believe this? Facing Xiao Chen's suspicious gaze, Gong Nantian angrily scolded, Get lost, brat. If you don't believe me, go in and try it yourself. After saying this, Gong Nantian didn't give Xiao Chun a chance to react. He waved his hand, and a powerful force directly dragged Xiao Chun into the entrance of the immortal demon road. Seeing Gong Nantian forcibly send Xiao Chun into the immortal demon road, Gu Lingyao angrily said, How can you do this? She thought that Gong Nantian wanted to harm Xiao Chun. Facing Gu Lingyao's fierce appearance, Gong Nantian only felt ashamed and coldly snorted. Humph, little girl, you don't know anything. This old man isn't harming him. Let me tell you, that token is the immortal demon token. With this token, you can run amok in the immortal demon road. This old man spent a lot of effort to get this immortal demon token. If it weren't for this brat being pleasing to the eye, this old man wouldn't have spent so much effort. Gong Nantian said with a displeased expression. Meanwhile, the immortal palace elder on the other side had a strange expression. He thought to himself, I spent quite a bit of effort to obtain this immortal devil order. You old bastard, you speak of it so lightly. Gu Lingyao and the others, including the monk and Taoist, were not from Immortal Palace, so they naturally didn't know about this immortal devil order. At the same time, they didn't know that this immortal devil order had always been in the care of one of Immortal Palace's 9 great palace masters, He Tian. He Tian was Immortal Palace's punishment hall master. Like Gong Nantian, he was one of Immortal Palace's 9 great hall masters and was in charge of Immortal Palace's punishments. Since the Immortal Demon Road was a path to redress the grievances of those disciples who violated the sect's rules, it was naturally managed by He Tian. As the head of the Punishment Palace, He Tian was famous for his stubbornness in Immortal Palace. Today, Gong Nantian gave the Immortal Devil order to Xiao Chun. Based on this elder's understanding of He Tian, it was definitely not He Tian who took the initiative to give it to Gong Nantian. Because with He Tian's personality, it was impossible for him to do such a thing. In this case, it could only be said that Gong Nantian used other methods to snatch the Immortal Devil Order from He Tian. Thinking of how Gong Nantian snatched the Immortal Devil Order from He Tian, this elder's face darkened. This Gong Nantian really didn't change at all. Gong Nantian was definitely the most eccentric existence in Immortal Palace. Not to mention his eccentric personality, his actions were completely based on his own preferences. Others simply couldn't understand him. As the number 1 palace master of Immortal Palace, Gong Nanshan's strength was indeed superior to the other 8 palace masters. He was fully deserving of the title of number 1. However, As for his personality, it was indeed unflattering. Just as this elder was thinking about this, a wave of cold air suddenly descended. Then, an old man with a black left eye appeared. At a glance, one could tell that he was beaten up. His appearance was somewhat comical. However, the old man didn't care about the injury on his face. As soon as he appeared, he looked at Gong Nantian with a cold expression and shouted coldly, "Gong Nantian, you treacherous bastard! Ha! Tian, don't be impulsive. Listen to my explanation." Hearing this, Gong Nantian said with a smile. However, Tian didn't listen to him at all. He was about to attack and shouted angrily, "Cut the crap. Gong Nantian, return my immortal devil order. Otherwise, I will fight you to the death today." As he spoke, Tian had already made his move. Gong Nantian had no choice but to fight back. Immortal Palace's two great ancestor-level palace masters directly began to fight. Although the monk and Taoist priest were also confused by this, these two fellows' personalities were to watch a good show, not fearing that things would get out of hand. They brought Gu Lingyao and the others back a certain distance, and then became the audience in high spirits. Although they didn't know why the two of them started fighting, it was really exciting to watch. Especially Tian. He didn't hold back at all. The monk and the Taoist priest were happy to watch the show. On the other side, the elder of Immortal Palace revealed an expression of as expected. Gong Nantian had used some tricks to snatch the immortal devil order from Tian's hands. Last night, Gong Nantian had said that he wanted to drink with Tian, but who knew that this dog had actually drugged the wine? The two of them were from the same sect, and they were both the 9 great palace masters of Immortal Palace. However, this bastard Gong Nantian actually drugged the wine. Tian didn't guard against Gong Nantian at all, so he was easily tricked. By the time Tian realized that he was tricked, Gong Nantian had already snatched his storage ring and forced him to take out the immortal devil order from it. With Tian's character, he naturally wouldn't do it first. However, this old dog Gong Nanshan's methods were extremely vicious. He actually tried to kill a fellow disciple. In the fierce battle, when Tian thought of the experience last night, the hatred in his heart couldn't help but surge. Both of them were completely blood red. Last night was definitely the most humiliating night in Tian's life. What tiger stool? What rocking chair? That old doggone Nantian used all the punishments in the punishment hall on him just to force him to take out the immortal devil order from his storage ring. With Tian's cultivation, the punishments in the punishment hall naturally couldn't take his life. They couldn't even cause serious injuries to Tian. However, compared to the injuries on his body, Tian's mental trauma was the most serious. After attacking with hatred, Tian couldn't help but shout angrily, "Gong Nantian, you despicable and shameless bastard. You even try to kill a fellow disciple. Today, I'll fight you to the death. Either you or me." Hey, old man, you have to make yourself clear. What did I try to kill you? I just wanted to borrow the immortal devil order. You're too stingy. You can't blame me for this. You, Gong Nantian, don't you dare slander me. Die. Gong Nanshan's reply made Tian even more furious. He immediately threw a punch at Gong Nantian. Gong Nantian didn't dodge or avoid it. In terms of strength, Gong Nantian was still slightly stronger. Therefore, even though Tian attacked with hatred, it didn't pose much of a threat to Gong Nantian. From the beginning to the end, Gong Nantian dealt with it with ease. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2452. Tian attacked in anger. However, in Gong Nanshan's opinion, Tian's strength was still lacking. After all, the title of First Palace Master was not for nothing. Therefore, no matter how angry Tian was, Gong Nantian could deal with him with ease. Tian was even more furious about this. When he thought of Gong Nantian drugging him and robbing his immortal demon token, Tian's anger rose uncontrollably. Many of Immortal Palace's disciples naturally sensed the intense battle between Gong Nantian and Tian. Many of them gathered in the distance and watched curiously. They didn't know why Gong Nan Tian and He Tian would suddenly fight. They did not understand the reason behind it. Of course, no one dared to rashly step forward to stop it. Only the other hall masters could only smile bitterly. As one of Immortal Palace's 9 great palace masters, the other palace masters understood Gong Nanshan's nature extremely well. This fellow was definitely a weirdo that others couldn't figure out. When he would do something, it was impossible to predict what he would do. Even Mu Lingxian smiled bitterly at this time. This Gong Nantian is really a headache. Mu Lingxian naturally knew the whole story. Moreover, when Gong Nantian fought with He Tian, Mu Lingxian already knew about it. However, Mu Lingxian did not stop it. Firstly, Gong Nantian did not have the intention to harm He Tian. Secondly, Gong Nantian wanted the Immortal Demon token just to help Xiao Chun. Mu Lingxian did not object to this. Mu Lingxian had a good impression of Xiao Chun. Since Gong Nantian wanted to help him, Mu Lingxian naturally had no reason to refuse. Gong Nantian, He Tian, quickly come and see me. However, it was not the same to let them fight like this. Moreover, judging from He Tian's appearance, he was obviously very angry. However, he could not do anything to Gong Nantian. Therefore, Mu Lingxian had to step in and stop them from fighting like this. After hearing Mu Lingxian's message, Gong Nantian smiled and said, He Tian, the palace master has spoken. Stop fighting. Let's see the palace master first. Looking at Gong Nanshan's mischievous grin, He Tian was unable to restrain his anger. He coldly snorted and said, Humph, Gong Nantian, this matter isn't over. There's also that brat. When he comes out of the Immortal Demon Road, I won't let him off. The kid that He Tian was referring to was naturally Xiao Chun. At this moment, Xiao Chun had been forcefully thrown into the Immortal Demon Road by Gong Nantian. He had thought that there would be some danger, but after traveling for some time in the Immortal Demon Road, Xiao Chun discovered that there wasn't any danger at all. The Immortal Demon Road could be regarded as a road of trial. With one thought, one could become an immortal, and with another, one could become a demon. From a moment he stepped onto the Immortal Demon Road, Xiao Chun was surrounded by endless darkness. There were terrifying void storms all around him. Originally, Xiao Chun had to withstand these void storms by himself. But because he had the Immortal Demon token, Xiao Chun discovered that there was a layer of mysterious power protecting his body. The violent void storms around him had no way of harming him. There was no pressure at all. In response, Xiao Chun looked at the Immortal Demon token in his hand. This seemingly ordinary token was really as Gong Nantian had said. It could allow him to run amok in the Immortal Demon Road. This token is pretty good. Since he had the Immortal Demon token's protection, Xiao Chun revealed a smile on his face and softly muttered to himself. As he spoke, Xiao Chun walked forward. When he had just entered the Immortal Demon Road, apart from the violent void storms around him, Xiao Chun didn't encounter any other dangers. Moreover, because of the Immortal Demon token, these void storms couldn't get close to Xiao Chun at all. Xiao Chun walked forward in a relaxed manner. He had no idea how long he had been walking. Suddenly, a village appeared before him. Looking at the small village in front of him, Xiao Chun was puzzled. There are other people in the Immortal Demon Road. Logically speaking, the Immortal Demon Road should be considered an independent small world. However, this small world shouldn't be man-made, but formed naturally by heaven and earth. Therefore, the Immortal Demon Road had its own set of laws of heaven and earth. However, Xiao Chun understood how dangerous the Immortal Demon Road was. Under such dangerous circumstances, it didn't make sense for there to be a village in the Immortal Demon Road. After all, even an End Realm expert would have a 90% chance of survival in the Immortal Demon Road, not to mention other people. Martial artists with low cultivation wouldn't be able to survive in the Immortal Demon Road. However, Xiao Chun had indeed arrived at a village. Although it wasn't large, it did exist. Although he had doubts in his heart, Xiao Chun didn't have any other choice. There was only one path in front of Xiao Chun, and this path led directly to the village. Therefore, no matter what, Xiao Chun had to enter the village. Moreover, As soon as he entered the immortal demon road, Xiao Chun had already tried it. It was impossible to fly within the immortal demon road. There seemed to be some kind of restriction placed in the sky, making it even more impossible to tear through the void. With a trace of doubt in his heart, Xiao Chun strode towards the village. Not long after, Xiao Chun arrived at the entrance of the village. Here, Xiao Chun saw an old man who was drowsily sitting on a recliner at the entrance of the village. Seeing Xiao Chun arrive, the old man didn't seem to be surprised at all. He just glanced at Xiao Chun indifferently and closed his eyes to rest again. It was as if he didn't care who Xiao Chun was or where he came from. Seeing the old man's calm appearance, Xiao Chun frowned. Xiao Chun could feel the aura of life from the old man. In other words, the old man was a living person. He was a real person and not an illusion. However, what made Xiao Chun feel even more strange was that Xiao Chun couldn't sense the old man's cultivation. Or rather, the old man didn't have any cultivation at all. He was just an ordinary person. This was strange. Even end-realm experts had a 90% chance of dying in the immortal demon road. How could an ordinary person survive? This was obviously not very likely. With doubts in his heart, Xiao Chun took the initiative to walk in front of the old man and asked softly, "Old man, may I ask where this place is?" Xiao Chun took the initiative to chat with the old man. Hearing this, the old man opened his eyes again. The expression in his eyes was very turbid. He looked at Xiao Chun and said in a hoarse voice, "This is Weng Village. You little kid, you're so strange. You walk here yourself, and you still don't know where this is?" After speaking, the old man closed his eyes again and no longer paid attention to Xiao Chun. In this regard, Xiao Chun could only bitterly smile. He didn't get anything useful from the old man. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2453. Outside the immortal demon road, Gu Lingyao's group didn't leave. However, the monk and Taoist had already disappeared. They knew that a mortal palace wouldn't do anything to Xiao Chun, so they weren't worried about Xiao Chun's safety. There was no point in staying here. Moreover, the monk and Taoist weren't easy to deal with, so they directly left. Outside the immortal demon road, Gu Lingyao's group didn't leave. However, the monk and Taoist had already disappeared. They knew that a mortal palace wouldn't do anything to Xiao Chun, so they weren't worried about Xiao Chun's safety. There was no point in staying here. Moreover, the monk and Taoist weren't easy to deal with, so they directly left. However, Gu Lingyao's group of three insisted on staying to wait for Xiao Chun. The Immortal Palace Elder didn't stop them. Anyway, the entrance to the Immortal Demon Road was already closed. They couldn't enter, so it was fine for them to stay. He couldn't help but worry about Xiao Chun. On the other side, in Mu Lingxian's residence, He Tian scolded Gong Nantian in front of Mu Lingxian. Mu Lingxian couldn't help but smile bitterly. All right. He Tian, Nantian is indeed at fault. However, since it has come to this, let's forget about it. Mu Lingxian didn't want to pursue the matter. After all, it wasn't the first time Gong Nantian had done something like this. There was no point in pursuing him now. Mu Lingxian tried to persuade He Tian, but Gong Nantian's face was ashen. Gong Nantian acted as if nothing had happened and happily drank his wine. Looking at Gong Nantian's appearance, He Tian couldn't help but coldly say to Mu Lingxian, "Palace Master, look at this guy. What does he look like he's admitting his mistake?" He Tian was unhappy with Gong Nantian's attitude. Mu Lingxian couldn't do anything about it. Gong Nantian's temper had been like this since he was young. What could he do? Helplessly smiling bitterly, He Tian still didn't give up and said, "Palace Master, the Immortal Demon Road has always been managed by the Punishment Palace. What does the Punishment Palace care about? Fairness. Now that Xiao Chun has entered the Immortal Demon Road with the Immortal Demon Order, other disciples will know about it. How can the Punishment Palace convince the disciples in the future?" He Tian was a stubborn old man. In his opinion, Gong Nantian giving the Immortal Demon Order to Xiao Chun was a cheating method. He Tian couldn't accept it. You're familiar with the Immortal Demon Road. He Tian. You should know the road. He Tian's has the goods. But Even if he has the order, it's not sure. Even Demon Road. Roads, you know it. Hearing Mu Lingxian's words, He Tian was stunned. Indeed, with the immortal demon order, one could be completely unscrupulous on the path of demon subduing because the path of demon subduing would not harm the person holding the immortal demon order. However, even so, some tests still depended on one's own strength, and the immortal demon order couldn't do anything about it. Therefore, Mu Lingxian's meaning was simple. Even if Xiao Chun had the order, it couldn't guarantee that Xiao Chun could pass the road of a mortal demon. Therefore, He Tian didn't need to be so agitated. Knowing that Mu Lingxian was telling the truth, He Tian didn't refute. But he still snorted at Gong Nantian to show his dissatisfaction. Gong Nantian chose to ignore it. He shook his head while drinking, which made He Tian furious. The matter between He Tian and Gong Nantian was quickly settled under Mu Lingxian's appearance. After all, He Tian couldn't disobey Mu Lingxian. Moreover, they had been friends for so many years. Although He Tian was angry, he knew Gong Nantian's character. This guy was helpless, and with such a helpless situation, what else could he do? Just admit that he was unlucky. Xiao Qin naturally didn't know what was happening in the outside world. After chatting with the old man for a while at the entrance of the village, Xiao Chan saw that the old man no longer paid any attention to him. He didn't ask for a snub and walked directly into the village. Just as Xiao Chan stepped into the village, the old man slowly opened his eyes. A meaningful smile appeared on his lips. He looked at Xiao Chen's back and whispered softly, "Wang Siyuan, this is like catching a turtle in a jar." As the old man's voice fell, a magical scene appeared. A white light directly enveloped Xiao Chun. In an instant, Xiao Chen's figure disappeared. Naturally, Xiao Chun himself also felt this power, but there was no way he could resist it. Under the shroud of the white light, Xiao Chun only felt that the world was spinning. After an unknown amount of time, when Xiao Chun regained consciousness again, he found himself standing on a busy street. There were noisy shops on both sides of the street. The street was even more crowded with people coming and going. It was already very strange for such a bustling scene to appear on the immortal demon road. However, Xiao Chun was stunned when he saw everything in front of him. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he said, This is Lingshan County City." Xiao Chun was naturally no stranger to Lingshan City. This was the place where he was born and grew up. Moreover, the Lingshan City before him seemed to be the same as when he was young. Xiao Chun was shocked. Soon, he found that his body had undergone earth-shaking changes. It was as if he had returned to his childhood in an instant. There was a youthful taste on his face. 15 years old, this was his appearance when he was 15 years old. Looking at his body that was obviously shorter and his face that was much younger, Xiao Chun recognized that he looked like when he was young. Did I return to my youth? He was puzzled. He was clearly on the immortal demon road. How could he have inexplicably returned to his childhood? Moreover, his cultivation had completely disappeared. His original cultivation of half-step emperor was now only at the completion of the yellow realm. This cultivation realm was the same as when he was 15 years old. Everything was so real that Xiao Chun did not know whether this was an illusion or reality. After walking around the street, Xiao Chun was sure that this was Lingshan City. However, Xiao Chun still did not understand what this meant. However, he was 80% sure that this was the doing of the immortal demon road. There was no way to solve it, because he was not the master of the sword sect, who was a half-step emperor. He was just a young boy with a cultivation of a yellow realm. Without any clues, Xiao Chun came to the Xiao family mansion according to his memory. It was exactly the same as when he was young. There was no change at all. Seeing Xiao Chun, the two Xiao family guards at the gate took the initiative to greet him with a smile. "Young master, you're back." The two guards obviously knew Xiao Chun. Looking at the two people in front of him, Xiao Chun just nodded slightly. Xiao Chen's mind was in a mess. On the one hand, everything was too real. On the other hand, Xiao Chun did not know what the immortal demon road meant. Could it really be to return him to his youth and reverse yin and yang? Let him live a new life? Thinking about this in his mind, Xiao Chan stepped into the home that he was once so familiar with without saying a word. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. End of chapter. Chapter 2454. Just a second ago, he was still on the immortal demon road, and the next second, he had inexplicably returned to his youth. How could Xiao Chan be unfamiliar with this version of himself? Just a second ago, he was still on the immortal demon road, and the next second, he had inexplicably returned to his youth. How could Xiao Chan be unfamiliar with this version of himself? The young master of the Xiao family, the #1 genius of Lingshan City, all kinds of halos shrouded him. At this time, Xiao Chun had yet to enter the East Sword Pavilion and was just a talented young man. After hundreds of years, Xiao Chen's mood could be imagined as he once again returned to this home that he had a deep memory of. There was joy, excitement, and at the same time, a deep sense of uneasiness. It couldn't be more appropriate to describe it as a complex feeling. However, reason kept telling Xiao Chun that all of this was an illusion. However, when Xiao Chun came to the front hall and saw the young Bai Ruyue, Xiao Chun couldn't help but be stunned on the spot. It was still that familiar face, but the current Bai Ruyue gave off a completely different feeling. She looked at Xiao Chun with eyes full of affection. Seeing Xiao Chun standing outside in a daze, Bai Ruyue, who was originally talking to the housekeeper, smiled and said, "What's wrong? Why are you staring blankly?" Hearing Bai Ruyue's words, Xiao Chun opened his mouth and softly called out, "Mother, okay. Mother has something to do here. You go to the backyard first. Chen Muxue is here. You can have a good chat with her. This girl is very good." Hearing this, Bai Ruyue said with a smile. She didn't wait for Xiao Chen's reply and turned to continue talking with the housekeeper. When Xiao Chun heard the 3 words Chen Muxue, he was also stunned. Xiao Chen didn't have any deep feelings towards these 3 words, but he had to admit that Chen Muxue occupied a very important position in his youth. The Xiao clan, the Chen clan, and the Ma clan were known as the 3 great clans of Lingshan County. As the young master of the Xiao clan and the only son of Xiao Qing, Xiao Chun dominated the younger generation of the Lingshan County. He had shown off his abilities and made the Xiao clan proud. As for Chen Muxue, she was the eldest daughter of the Chen family. Although her talent and cultivation were not as good as Xiao Chen's, her looks were outstanding. She was known as the most beautiful woman in Lingshan Prefecture. Moreover, as the Xiao clan and the Chen clan were both part of the 3 great clans in Lingshan Commandery City, Chen Muxue and Xiao Chun had known each other since they were young. Chen Muxue had always admired Xiao Chun, and this admiration did not change as they grew older. On the contrary, as Xiao Chun became more outstanding, Chen Muxue became even more infatuated with Xiao Chun. The 2 of them were childhood sweethearts, and many people in Lingshan County saw the 2 of them as a golden couple. After all, one was a talented and elegant young man, while the other was a beautiful and elegant young lady. Naturally, they were a good match. In addition, Bai Ruyue and Xiao Qing were also very fond of Chen Muxue and wanted to matchmake the 2 of them. Therefore, Chen Muxue naturally became a frequent guest of the Xiao clan. When he heard that Chen Muxue was here, Xiao Chun frowned slightly. However, he didn't say anything and immediately turned to walk towards the backyard. In his heart, he kept telling himself that all of this was just an illusion. Xiao Chun naturally didn't have any feelings towards Chen Muxue. He didn't hate her, let alone love her. Xiao Chun treated Chen Muxue as if she was a stranger. It was more appropriate to use the word indifferent to describe it. Moreover, Chen Muxue had died long ago. Xiao Chun never thought that he would actually have any interactions with her. Although this wasn't reality, everything in front of him seemed so real. According to his memories, Xiao Chun directly returned to the small courtyard where he lived. As the young master of the Xiao clan, Xiao Chen's treatment was naturally better. The place where he lived was also the best courtyard in the Xiao clan, second only to Xiao Qing and Bai Ruyue's residence. In the courtyard, there were pavilions, artificial mountains, and lakes. The scenery was pretty good. At least in Lingshan County City, there was probably no better courtyard than this. When Xiao Chun strode into the courtyard, a beautiful figure took the initiative to run over. It was a young lady wearing a green dress. She stood in front of Xiao Chun and sweetly called out with a smile on her face, "Brother Xiao Chun." The young lady's appearance was indeed not bad. She could be described as devastatingly beautiful. Looking at the young lady in front of him, Xiao Chun couldn't help but be immersed in his memories. Chun Muxiue, his childhood playmate. However, fate made fools of people. Meeting her again, Xiao Chun's heart couldn't help but ripple. Of course, this ripple naturally had nothing to do with love. At most, it was a little sigh of the past. Quickly regaining his senses, Xiao Chun looked at Chun Muxiue and indifferently said, "You can go." There was nothing much to say to Chun Muxiue. Xiao Chun was most concerned about how to break the illusion in front of him. In Xiao Chun's opinion, he must have fallen into an illusion. However, this illusion was too heaven-defying, making it difficult for people to distinguish between reality and illusion. Even Xiao Chun couldn't see the slightest flaw in it. But no matter what, Xiao Chun must find a way to break it. Otherwise, how could he leave the immortal demon road? Xiao Chun's attitude was cold. Upon hearing his words, Chun Muxiue was taken aback. Her eyes instantly turned red. She looked at Xiao Chun timidly and said with an aggrieved expression, "Big brother Xiao Chun, I'm here to..." Chun Muxiue obviously had something to tell Xiao Chun. However, Xiao Chun didn't appreciate it at all. Before Chun Muxiue finished her sentence, Xiao Chun interrupted her. "I'm not interested. You can go." Xiao Chun didn't listen to what Chun Muxiue wanted to say. As soon as his voice fell, he strode away and locked himself in the room, thinking about how to break the illusion in front of him. Looking at Xiao Chun's back as he left, Chun Muxiue couldn't help but cry in the face of such a heartless Xiao Chun. 2 lines of clear tears flowed down from the corners of her eyes. She looked at Xiao Chun's tightly shut room with teary eyes and said sadly, "Big brother Xiao Chun, I really like you." Chun Muxiue's admiration for Xiao Chun had never changed since she was a child. The Chun family even specially visited Xiao Qing and Bai Ruiyue to discuss their marriage. Xiao Qing and Bai Ruiyue didn't object to this marriage. On the contrary, they were very supportive, at least in this illusion. However, Xiao Chun did not agree, so there was no result. Chun Muxiue came today to try one last time. She wanted to tell Xiao Chun all the words in her heart. She wanted to tell Xiao Chun how much she loved him and that it had not changed since they were children. However, Xiao Chun didn't give Chun Muxiue this chance at all. Perhaps there wouldn't be such a chance in the future because the young sect master of the Ju Mountain sect had come to the Chun family to propose marriage to Chun Muxiue. Chun Muxiue's father had also agreed. In the illusion, the development of things seemed to be different. It was no longer blindly developing according to Xiao Chun's memory. Instead, there were deviations. After all, in Xiao Chun's memory, the young sect master of the Ju Mountain sect didn't come to the Chun family to propose marriage at this time. However, this was the case in the illusion. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2455. Looking at Xiao Chun's room with tears in her eyes, Chun Muxiue wanted to knock on the door and tell Xiao Chun everything that was in her heart. However, she did not have the courage. Xiao Chun's cold attitude made Chun Muxiue feel at a loss. Chun Muxiue stood there in a daze. After a while, she turned around and left in a daze. Her back looked very bleak. Xiao Chun did not know what Chun Muxiue was thinking. Of course, he did not care at all. At this moment, Xiao Chun's only thought was how to break the illusion in front of him. He kept telling himself that everything in front of him was an illusion and not real. However, no matter how hard Xiao Chun tried, he found that everything in front of him was flawless. There was no way to break it. He could not break it, and his cultivation was only in the yellow realm. What could a yellow realm cultivator do? Naturally, he tried to restore his cultivation, but it was to no avail. It was as if his cultivation was in the yellow realm and not in the half-step sovereign realm. Xiao Chun tried all night, but in the end he failed. It was not until the next morning, when Bai Ruiyue came to his courtyard, that Xiao Chun had no choice but to give up. In the courtyard, Xiao Chun's face was a little ugly. Bairue said softly. Chen today the Ju Mountain sect went to the Chen family to propose marriage. Are you really not going to do anything? Bairue came in person early in the morning to tell Xiao Chan that Chun Mushue was about to be engaged. Xiao Chan was slightly stunned and said with some confusion, "What marriage proposal?" He did not know about the engagement between Chen Mushue and the young master of the Ju Mountain sect. After all, in his memory, Chun Mushue had never been engaged to the young master of the Ju Mountain sect. However, with Bairyue's explanation, Xiao Chun quickly learned the whole story. He frowned slightly. The development of this matter seemed to be somewhat different from what he remembered. Things that didn't happen in his memory were happening in this illusion. Didn't this mean that things wouldn't develop according to his memory in the future? This illusion seemed to be more troublesome than Xiao Chun had imagined. Moreover, Xiao Chun had already tried it last night. If he was killed, then it was very likely that he would really die. In other words, even if this was an illusion, if he was killed in the illusion, then he would probably die in reality. Or it could be said that his spirit would dissipate, leaving only his body. Everything in the illusion was so real that it was not a simple illusion. Once he died in the illusion, he would not be able to escape the calamity in reality. Xiao Chun frowned and pondered. Seeing this, Bairue thought that Xiao Chun was upset by the news, so she tried to comfort him. "Chinner, since you can't let it go, then go and take a look. No matter what, don't let yourself regret it." However, as a young sect master of Ju Mountain sect, Wang Ming naturally could remain calm. Thus, he had a faint smile on his face the entire time as he chatted with Chun Mushue in a gentle tone. He had the temperament of an elegant young master. "Mushue, I've been to Lingshan County a few times, but I'm not very familiar with it. I'll need you to lead the way," Wang Ming said gently as he looked at Chun Mushue. Hearing this, Chun Mushue also smiled slightly. "Young master, don't worry. Mushue understands." Looking at the smile on Chun Mushue's face, Wang Ming only felt his heart skip a beat, and for a moment, it was as if he had fallen in love. Under Chun Mushue's lead, the two of them strolled around Lingshan County. In the end, Chun Mushue also brought Wang Ming to Moon Lake in Lingshan County. Moon Lake was the most popular place in Lingshan County, and also the place with the most beautiful scenery. There were many pleasure boats on Moon Lake, and one could drink and have fun here. One could see the best scenery in Lingshan County, and it was the favorite place of the city's dignitaries. Just as the two of them reached Moon Lake and were about to board the pleasure boat, Chun Mushue, who had been acting intimately with Wang Ming, suddenly froze on the spot. This was because Xiao Chun was walking towards them. She had never thought that she would actually meet Xiao Chun here. Furthermore, Wang Ming was standing next to her. Seeing Xiao Chun walking towards her, Chun Mushue couldn't help but panic. She was afraid that Xiao Chun would see her with another man. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2456. Although she had agreed to marry Wang Ming, in her heart, the person she had always liked was still Xiao Chun. She was with Wang Ming because of his status, and for the sake of the entire family, but the most important reason was still Xiao Chun. Although she had agreed to marry Wang Ming, in her heart, the person she had always liked was still Xiao Chun. She was with Wang Ming because of his status, and for the sake of the entire family, but the most important reason was still Xiao Chun. Because of Xiao Chen's indifference to her, Chun Mushue's heart had almost died. It was at this time that Wang Ming came to propose marriage, and Chun Mushue naturally agreed. However, although she had already decided to marry Wang Ming, when she saw Xiao Chun, she still felt a little guilty, as if she had been caught in an affair. Why is big brother Xiao Chun here? What will he think when he sees Wang Ming? Her heart was in a mess, and she was extremely nervous as she made wild guesses. But Chun Mushue's worries were clearly unfounded, because Xiao Chun had no intention of paying attention to her at all. He had already seen Chun Mushue and Wang Ming from afar. At first, Xiao Chun was indeed stunned, but not because of Chun Mushue, but because of Wang Ming. In the morning, He had already heard from Bai Ruyue that Wang Ming had come to propose marriage, and he also knew that Wang Ming was the young sect leader of Yueshan's sect. Looking at Wang Ming, a strange look flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. Things in this illusion really seemed a little different for what he remembered. But very quickly, Xiao Chen no longer paid attention to this. Right now, the most important thing was to break the illusion, but unfortunately, he had yet to find a way. Completely ignoring Chen Muxue, Xiao Chen directly walked past her indifferently. But when they brushed past each other, Chen Muxue was completely stunned when she saw that Xiao Chen was completely ignoring her. Big brother Xiao Chen. Seeing Xiao Chen ignore her so much that he didn't even look at her, Chen Muxue thought that Xiao Chen was angry at her for being with another man. Chen Muxue was really overthinking it, but Xiao Chen had no intention of explaining at all. However, to Wang Ming's surprise, just as Xiao Chen was about to leave, Chen Muxue directly let go of him and shouted at Xiao Chen's back. Big brother Xiao Chen, it's not like that. Chen Muxue wanted to explain so that Xiao Chen wouldn't misunderstand her, but her actions caused Wang Ming's face to instantly turn ashen. Xiao Chen also turned around with an irritated expression and said, "What happened has nothing to do with me." Xiao Chen was speaking from the bottom of his heart. No matter what happened between Chen Muxue and Wang Ming, it indeed had nothing to do with him, and Xiao Chen didn't care at all. But just because Xiao Chen thought this way, it didn't mean that other people thought the same. When this feeling appeared, Xiao Chen broke out in a cold sweat. At the same time, he constantly reminded himself that all of this was fake. It was an illusion and didn't exist. However, with the passage of time and the smiling faces of his father, Xiao Qing, and Bai Ruyue, this voice became weaker and weaker, and its effect became weaker and weaker. There were many times when Xiao Chen thought that the immortal demon road had really turned back time, and that everything in front of him was actually real. It was in this kind of torment that a month slowly passed. Xiao Chen had already lived in Lingshan County City for a month. At the age of 15, he had rejuvenated himself for a month. During this month, Xiao Chen indeed seemed to have returned to his childhood. It was also early in the morning that a group of uninvited guests were outside Lingshan County City. There were many people in this group, but everyone was wearing the same clothes. They were all from Zhu Mountain's sect, and Wang Ming was among them. A month had passed, but Wang Ming's face was still extremely gloomy as he walked into Lingshan County City. An old man next to him smiled and said to him, "Young sect master, don't worry. A mere Xiao family can't make any waves. This old man can destroy it in an instant. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote. Recommended." End of chapter. Seeing how respectful Chen Muxue's father was, Wang Ming nodded slightly, then got up and said indifferently, "I'm going to see Chen Muxue." Hearing that, Chen Muxue's father replied respectfully, "Yes, young sect master, this way please." As he spoke, he personally led Wang Ming to the backyard. For the past month, Chen Muxue had been under house arrest. Although she really wanted to see Xiao Chen, she didn't have the chance at all. In the backyard, Chen Muxue was sitting in a pavilion in the courtyard with a pale face. When she heard the courtyard door open, Chen Muxue turned her head to look. However, her face turned completely pale with just one glance. Wang Ming was definitely the person Chen Muxue didn't want to see the most. It could even be said that she was afraid of him. However, Wang Ming didn't care at all, nor did he care about Chen Muxue's instantly pale face. He said indifferently to Chen Muxue's father, "There's nothing for you to do here." Hearing Wang Ming's indifferent tone, Chen Muxue's father was taken aback. Then he nodded repeatedly and said, "Yes, yes, yes, then I'll take my leave first." After saying that, he completely ignored Chen Muxue's pleading gaze and directly left the courtyard. After Chen Mushue's father left, only Wang Ming and Chen Mushue were left in the courtyard. Wang Ming strode over to Chen Mushue and said with a cold smile, "I've already sent someone to the Xiao family. You'll be able to see Xiao Chun very soon." As he spoke, a vicious look flashed across Wang Ming's eyes, and he looked like a wild beast that was about to devour a person. Upon hearing this, Chen Mushue froze on the spot. Xiao family? Wang Ming was going to make a move on Xiao Chun. Chen Mushue's heart was in a panic as she gritted her teeth and looked at Wang Ming. "Let go of Xiao Chun, and I'll marry you." With tears in her eyes, Chen Mushue didn't know what she should do. She knew that she didn't have the power to resist a colossus like Zhu Mountain sect, but for Xiao Chun, she was willing to marry Wang Ming. Of course, in Chen Mushue's heart, she had already made up her mind. As long as Xiao Chun safely escaped from Lingshan County City, she would kill herself. She absolutely wouldn't let Wang Ming have her. It had to be said that in the illusion, Chen Mushue's feelings for Xiao Chun were indeed sincere. However, after hearing Chen Mushue's words, Wang Ming sneered and directly slapped Chen Mushue without warning. 5 red fingerprints instantly appeared on her cheeks, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Pinching Chen Mushue's chin, Wang Ming slowly lifted her head. Looking at the face in front of him, which was still as beautiful as ever, but incomparably stubborn, Wang Ming's smile was so chilling. "Chen Mushue, do you think that you still have a right to negotiate with me? You're just a slut. I was willing to marry you before, but now, you're only fit to be my plaything." Chapter 2459. Wang Ming ruthlessly humiliated Chen Mushue, then turned around and left. Today, Wang Ming wanted to show Xiao Chun how he had abused Chen Mushue in front of him. No one in the Chun family dared to stop Wang Ming. On the other side, the Xiao family welcomed Elder Di Mingjing from the Zhu Mountain sect. The Zhu Mountain sect elder's personal visit made everyone in the Xiao family feel as if they were facing a formidable enemy, especially the head of the family, Xiao Qing, who knew that the Zhu Mountain sect didn't come with good intentions. The Xiao family and the Zhu Mountain sect didn't have a deep relationship, or rather, the Zhu Mountain sect didn't care about the Xiao family at all. Xiao Qing had also heard about the matter between Xiao Chun and Wang Ming a month ago, and knew that there was enmity between Xiao Chun and Wang Ming. Now that the Zhu Mountain sect elder had come personally, it definitely wasn't anything good. In the main hall, Xiao Qing looked at the Zhu Mountain sect elder with a grave expression. "May I ask why elder is here?" "It's nothing. We just want to invite your Xiao family to attend our young sect master's wedding, and also ask your Xiao family's young master, Xiao Chun, to come out," the elder said indifferently. Wang Ming had ordered that no one from the Xiao family could be killed for the time being, so the elder didn't directly make a move. Hearing this, Xiao Qing's expression turned completely ugly. Inviting the Xiao family to attend Wang Ming's wedding. Could it be so simple? Obviously not. Given the enmity between Xiao Chun and Wang Ming was only doing this to humiliate the Xiao family. Xiao Qing's expression was ugly, but did he have the right to refuse? Obviously not. In front of the Zhu Mountain sect, the Xiao family was indeed too weak. Just this Zhu Mountain sect elder in front of him wasn't someone the Xiao family could contend with. In the entire Xiao family, there was no Di Mingjing, and Xiao Qing, who had the highest cultivation, was only at the mystic Ian Great Perfection stage. Seeing that Xiao Qing didn't answer for a long time, the elder sneered and said, "What? Didn't you hear what I said? Or do you want me to personally bring out your Xiao family's young master, Xiao Chen?" His tone was filled with mockery. In his eyes, the Xiao clan was just an ant that he could trample on easily. The Xiao clan did not have the ability to reject his words. The Zhu Mountain sect's revenge came quickly, but Xiao Qing was powerless against it. Not only Xiao Qing, but everyone in the Xiao clan was the same. Clenching his teeth, Xiao Qing also cupped his hands and bowed to the elder. "My Xiao clan has no intention of offending the Zhu Mountain sect. My Xiao clan is also willing to compensate for the previous matter. I hope that elder can be lenient." He could only admit defeat when he was weaker. However, the elder sneered when he heard Shao Qing's words. Compensation. Then, without any hesitation, the long sword in his hand directly pierced Bai Rui's heart. Fresh blood gushed out continuously, and Bai Rui directly fell into a pool of blood. Seeing this scene, Shao Chun was completely stunned. He stood in a daze on the spot, motionless. His eyes were fixed on Bai Rui, who had fallen into a pool of blood, dead. His mother had died in front of him just like that. Even so, Wang Ming still had no intention of stopping. He went to Shao Qing's side once again and said with a smile as he attacked, Shao Chun, I said that I would make your life worse than death. Don't worry, this is just the beginning. The feeling of losing your parents must be terrible, right? As a son, you can only watch helplessly as your parents are killed. Is it very hopeless? Huh. Saying this, Wang Ming laughed loudly. His laughter was filled with savagery. Along with Shao Chun, Shao Qing was also directly killed by Wang Ming's sword. Just like that, Shao Qing and Bai Rui were directly killed by Wang Ming in front of Shao Chun. Seeing his parents die, Shao Chun had already completely lost his mind. He didn't care about illusion or reality at all. This was definitely not good news for Shao Chun. Because of his hatred, Shao Chun had already begun to gradually sink into the illusion. At this moment, Shao Chun no longer thought about getting rid of the illusion, nor did he care about where he was. Now, Shao Chun only had one thing in mind, and that was to kill Wang Ming. No, he wanted to make Wang Ming's life worse than death and make him feel despair. Staring at Wang Ming with bloodshot eyes, Shao Chun had already gradually sunk into the illusion because of his hatred. Please add, please vote, please recommend. They didn't know what had happened, but in the face of the Chun family's horror, Shao Chun just said indifferently, from today onwards, the Chun family no longer exists. As soon as he finished speaking, the spirit power within Shao Chun's body spread out and covered the entire Chun family in an instant. Under the shroud of Shao Chun's spirit power, everyone in the Chun family's mansion was crushed to death and turned into clouds of blood mist. The might of a half-step venerable sovereign was naturally not something these ants in the Chun family could contend with. Even Chun Mushue, who was in the backyard, was directly crushed to death without being able to put up any resistance. Shao Chun didn't care about Chun Mushue's life or death at all. Following the deaths of the entire Chun family, the head of the Chun family looked at Shao Chun in a daze. He didn't understand at all why things had turned out like this. Also, the Chun family, the huge Chun family, was it over just like that? He originally thought that he was riding on the coattails of the Yueshan sect, but who would have thought that in the end, it would bring disaster to the Chun family? Moreover, Shao Chun didn't even make a move. Just the pressure of his aura alone was enough to wipe out the entire Chun family, not even leaving behind a chicken or a dog. At this time, there was no other living thing in the Chun residence except for the head of the Chun family. Why? Why did this happen? Standing in the main hall, the head of the Chun family said in a daze, but he didn't get any answer. As soon as he finished speaking, the head of the Chun family directly exploded and turned into a bloody mist, dying on the spot. Please add, please vote, please recommend. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.